Okay, let's do this thing. So really quickly, I'm going to give you a breakdown of what it looks like, what we're going to be kind of doing and how we can make it work. So first things first, Jenna and I will introduce ourselves and tell a little bit about ourselves. We're going to tell you a little bit about our year-long mentoring program, as well as maybe some other fun things that we think of. And then from there, we're going to do a few critiques. We have 10 photos that we're going to critique, and we're going to try and keep that reined in a little bit. We're not going to spend like 30 minutes on each photo. We're going to keep it reined in. And then from there, we're going to open it up for Q&A, discussion, like whatever you want to talk about. We are open books. And sometimes a little too open, but ask about anything. What else was I going to say? Oh, you can use feel free to chat. There's the chat down below. You can write your questions in there, or you can also chat if you like agree with something or you want to add in something. We love that too. And then if you have questions and you want to like actually talk, you can try and wave at me. Because we have so many people, I'm over 2 screens, like I have one and 2. So I might not see you. So it might be good to use the raise hand, and that's under the reactions. Should also be down below. And that way I can see you. Otherwise, like I said, you can ask questions in the chat, or, you know, you can just unmute yourself if it's a good time and just kind of butt in and say, hey, I have something to say.
Yeah, can I just extend on that a little bit?
Yeah, please do.
I know if it's your first, I don't know who comes to Zoom classes, other Zoom classes, if it's your first Zoom class or the setting where you're like, you know, feel like you're in a classroom or like you're on video or you're off. We are not, at least I'm pretty sure not either, but I am not a perfectionist. I feel like it can be a little nerve-wracking to be in a scenario like this, but to me, I think of it as social as possible. And so like, feel free to jump in and ask a question on video, even if you're a little bit nervous, because everyone kind of is, you know, like everyone is at first, but then you get used to it. You know, like there's a lot of faces here that are in our current class that I don't know how they felt in the beginning, but now they're on screen all the time because we look at each other for feedback. And just like when we look at photographs, I don't expect photographs to be perfect. Otherwise, why are we looking at them? I just feel like I don't expect you to be perfect. I hope that you don't expect me to be perfect. So just feel free to come and be a little bit nervous and share in whatever way feels right to you.
Yes, I agree 100%. Jenna, I'm going to send you, this would be image. We don't, blah, blah, blah. Kat wants to send one different image. Like she sent me a different image. So I'm going to grab that and send it to you just normal via email.
Yep. Okay.
And we'll
I'll do that while you're talking then.
Okay. Hold on, let me download it real quick. Okay. Does that all make sense to everyone? Is anyone lost with where to find the buttons or anything else? Okay, good. So to start out with, I am Ash Raddatz, and this is my lovely friend, sister, I don't know. Yes, Jenna Shouldice. And I'm going to start out with me, and then I'll let Jenna talk a little bit about herself. I'm going to keep it really short and sweet for myself. I am the founder of Documentary Family Photographers Worldwide. You know, we have the big Facebook group and education and the directory and a bunch of other things. I'm also a photographer, mostly focusing on documentary work. I would say 98% of the time. I really enjoy photographing births and street photography. I recently came to the realization that I don't like families. No, I do like families, but I find I'm pulled more towards birth and street work. And so I always joke that my ideal photo session would be a birth on the streets. Let's see what else. I'm trying to think. Oh, I have 2 boys and a husband. I'm American and I live in Germany. I've been here for 13, almost 14 years, or 13 and a half years now. And yeah, I do mostly, I mean, when it comes to mentoring and teaching and things like that, I do stick mostly to business stuff. Doesn't mean that I can't critique or, um, help with photography stuff. I just felt there was a big gap in documentary family photographers and like the business side of things and how it can work for us. And I knew that I could potentially help there because of my history with business and marketing prior to being a photographer. So I think that's a little bit about me. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Jenna, can you think of anything about me that I'm leaving off?
I can just insert that you are an incredible business resource and not just a person who can contribute. I think I love to say this because like I've just seen the content that you come up with and it blows my mind what comes out of your brain. And like I don't know any of that stuff. So like I'm not trying to hurt you on Ash. I'm just trying to say like it's crazy. The what is in her brain is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me say this really quick. My approach to business is a way of business that it doesn't have to be perfect to make things work. And so giving and providing as much information about why you're doing certain things as possible, and then helping you decide which things you really want to take a hold of and put into motion for your business in order for it to work for you and not have to be something you're not. So.
And I guess we'll talk about it during the course stuff, but just the way that you lay it out is so like it's step by step and breaks everything down just in a way that's I'm actually just complimenting you. I really think it's amazing.
Well, I think you're amazing. Okay, go ahead. You talk about yourself.
I always like when you talk about yourself, I always forget. Like, what is it about yourself that people want to know?
I know.
So I have been a photographer basically my whole adult life. So I graduated from a professional college or technical professional college in 2007. Prior to that, I was in school for psychology. So I've been working as a photographer since then. In the beginning, so I've been working as a documentary photographer from the beginning, but in the beginning, I mostly did weddings for a long time and then families, but outside and then birth. I'd have done a lot of birth. But those are like my main sort of visible things, but I have done everything like behind the scenes since then. So I've also done lots of portraits, editorial work, and I do all kinds of storytelling that's outside of like even when I was just presenting as a wedding photographer, I would do all kinds of stories for local groups or businesses and whatnot. So I photographed quite a bit. And also I feel like it's worth just kind of noting that I'm obsessed with it, like very passionate about it. Like I really love it. I love talking about photography, not in a techie way. I feel like people are always searching out conversations about photography. Okay, confirm if I'm wrong, people that I've worked with here, that like when you want to talk about photography, you're always kind of searching for a good conversation and everyone's like, well, here's a lens, or like, here's how I use apertures. And you're like, oh, it's not what I want, right? It's like the discussions about like approach and theory. That's what is exciting to me. And I could talk about that kind of all day. So I feel like when I describe myself, like outside of this setting, I just tell people like, oh no, I'm a photographer. Like I just have to be a photographer. It's like the medium by which I communicate the best. But I'm also an obsessive crafter. So I really like to deep dive into making all kinds of things. You too? Yeah. It's so fun. I'm obsessed. Like, and I pick a new thing every year and go a little bit crazy about it. But what I like about that, and the reason I'm sharing that, is that I really like being bad at stuff and then figuring it out and trying to figure out how to be good later. And I feel like that's relevant to photography, and it's helpful in teaching as well. I also co-founded the DFA, the Documentary Family Awards, with Kirsten and my husband Tristan, and I've judged on that since the beginning. So, and then I've been teaching since 2015. Is there anything else that I should be adding? I feel like the most important thing is that I'm a crafter.
Yeah, I think the most important is that you're a crafter as well.
Yeah,
I wholeheartedly agree. And then I'll just compliment you on Jenna's like one of probably my top 10 favorite photographers. And being able to teach alongside of her and learning how her brain works has been like, yeah, just incredible and a real treat for me. So that's my compliment.
You can tell from the 3 posts I make a year.
How good I am. Okay,
Anyway,
so before we get into critiquing and all that other fun stuff, we just wanted to, because we want you to be able to get a taste of how we teach and how funny and sparkly we are. I mean, obviously. But in addition to that, really, we wanted a chance to, give feedback and answer any questions people have and create discussion, especially as we're going into the new year. New year, new me, right? So we wanted to hit on anything you all had. And again, we appreciate anyone that wants to chime in as well. But briefly, we wanted to also mention that in 2024, our year-long program called No More Effing, I'm saying that because there might be kids around, No More Effing Around, starts. It's a year-long. Some of our students are actually in here with us, which is exciting, from this year. And yeah, it's basically a year where Jenna and I help you and guide you through getting everything you need together in order to catapult your photography and your business. I like that word. I just found catapult.
Yeah, it found you.
Yeah, it did. It just came out. And so that's a breakdown of, or it's a split between photography and business and building out your portfolio and your website and creating your brand. And so the business things we cover in it, I made a list really quick, is branding, which includes your messaging, your unique impact and your voice, your identity, your story, your website, your pricing, your sales, marketing, which is plans, campaigns, newsletters, and partnerships, as well as workflows you need and referral programs, like everything you need for a business, whether to improve your current business and get it like buttoned up, or to start your business. And then the photography side of that is just as Jenna explained, and Jenna, you can chime in on this, but Jenna basically provides you with this toolbox and this new way of really finding your voice and what you're saying through your photographs, and how they resonate with people, as well as, more importantly, how they resonate with you. And my job then is to help you translate that into words in order to get that to clients, or get the clients that you want, as well as if submitting to publications, or if you're wanting to put an exhibit or whatever, being able to put those things into words to write like an artist statement. Go ahead, Jenna.
All I'll add is, like, I mean, this is obviously, we're here to tell you about the course and then obviously to help you as well. And that's sort of like where we come from. Ash and I are always trying to give out as much information as we can. Like, we care about getting information to you so that you have everything you can to do your best going out. And I feel like the course, so you'll get a taste of it. But anyway, I'm just repeating what you said basically. But to me, the course is like, if you're just like, oh, why is this not working for me? And I need to like launch myself this much forward and I can't, and all the things you need to do, and you're just kind of struggling with like all those things Ash listed: marketing, website, style, like finding the right client, all that stuff. That is all covered in 1 year, and you are covered and you're mentored the whole time. So you have people individually helping you get to that place. And I think that's the biggest difference, is that you have someone holding your hand, than opposed to having to do it all by yourself and research it all by yourself. It's like, we have the research, we can tell you what to do and help you. But the most important thing is that although it's all this information, it's very individual. Like, would you like, do you feel that way, people that are here? It's individualized. So it's like, we're helping you specifically. Well, how is this going to apply to you? How does it apply to Christine? How does it apply to Sarah? Like, those things matter to us. It's not just, here's a general piece of advice, good luck. It's very much like individually, we are like helping your business and your photography go forward. So in photography, I can just expand to say the assignments are a combination of discussion, theory, and in practice, like practical assignments. So you're actually getting out in the field quite a bit. And so if you do all those assignments, by the end of the year, you basically have a whole portfolio to pull from. I don't know. I think there's a lot of content. There's just a lot of content in the course. I feel very confident about that. Like, I wouldn't bullshit that if sorry, I did swear. Hopefully there are no children. we do swear in the class. There's an F word in the title. So get ready. But I wouldn't say this if I didn't feel it. Like, I really wouldn't. I know you don't know me, but like, it is packed. Yes, it applies to wedding photography, because I was a wedding photographer for a long time. So I can answer all, and loved it, still love it, still do it. So feel very relevant and comfortable talking about wedding photography. There's just so much information. Do you know, like,
Well, which is why it's a year.
yeah,
Because it's not only getting the information, it's about implementing what you're learning. So that's
yeah.
the biggest, I think, takeaway from the program itself, is that we really want you to, you can take workshops, you can read books, you can do all these things, but if you're not actually implementing what you're learning and putting it into practice, like what use is the information that you've received? So
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing of it, is we actually want you to walk out of it after a year being able to go courageously out into the world and start making decisions without having us to hold your hand for that, after that year's up.
And we
But
prepare
really
you for
being
that.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we prepare you to do that.
And you know what? The other thing that I'll just mention is the community that comes with it. The community that comes with the course is incredible, because you have other people that are working alongside you doing all the same things. And we encourage you to work together. Like, we have assignments where you do work together, so you get to know your peers. And so you're like at the end, or like not even at the end, but come the middle, you actually are supported by lots of people, and people walk away with like very lasting friendships from this. So I don't know, I think
Right.
that's a huge part of it.
Yes, I agree. That's like my favorite part of it, to be honest.
Mhm.
Seeing
bonding.
like 4 years later, seeing everyone still like in love with each other.
Yeah.
Cindy asked, what if I don't want to build a business? I just want to discover my voice and get better. We've had a lot of students in the past that have taken that route as well. And then my job with the business side of things, it's still applicable, because again, it's teaching, you have to decide, well, let me back up. It depends on what you want to do with that work you're making, and how if you want to put it out into the world, and how you want to do that and show up with it. So a lot of the business stuff can still apply in terms of, when we talk about branding, we're not necessarily talking, it is in a business sense, but in the other sense, it's really about the bigger impact that you're creating with your work, and that impact that you're having on people when they view your work, and how they feel, and how you want them to walk away and think of your work and see your work, or what they think of when they hear your name. Are they going to think of your photographs, or what's going to happen with that? So that's what the business side of it would cover, as well as obviously building a website, because you can still put your work out there and put up a portfolio, and like I said, submit to exhibits, or publications, or any number of things you can do with your work without having to have a business. Right, Jenna?
Yep, I think that, so practically speaking, yes, there's lots of ways that you can apply it. You just have a little less pressure on yourself to complete it in a way that requires getting, a certain clientele.
Right.
And we have also had people that don't do any of that. They do just want to get better, and that's what matters to them, and that's fine. And because you have individual one-on-ones with us every month, let's say you didn't want anything to do with business, although it would totally apply based on what you and I both just said, it'd be relevant information for you to know. Even if you're just marketing yourself as an artist,
Right.
is that in the one-on-ones, we can give you personal assignments for a month where you might be going slower. Do you know what I mean? So if you need an extra shooting assignment based on how you're doing, I can give you that. So that's to your benefit as well.
Right. Amanda asked, are there limited spots? Yes. We keep it limited because we meet in classes like this, just like this, at least 3 to 4 times a month, typically, just depending on where we are at in the year. That can change a little bit here and there. But in addition to that, we meet one-on-one. And since we want to be able to give everyone individualized attention, we keep it limited to the number of students who can join us for the year. And it's a year. Our biggest thing is we want, if students are joining us, we want them to kind of go all in with us, or I should say go all in on themselves, and like really give themselves that year to do it, and be up for the challenge. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna just like do this willy-nilly, which is why it's called No More Effing Around. Yeah. Okay. Anything else you can think of, Jenna?
I think that's good for now. I
Okay.
feel like you can ask questions if you want.
Yeah, definitely. At
After
the
we
end.
get talking.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll put a link in the chat as well to our program.
Oh, is there a discount right now? Is that what you're going to talk about?
Oh yeah, there is. The one thing we're going to say is right now, we have, it's a year long and we've never done this before, but it's 500 euro off of the typical year-long price right now. And yeah, that's for a limited time. Until when can you join the program? Until the end of this month, right? December.
I think so. Or we're going to start mid-January.
Yeah, so our plan is to start the program mid-January, but we also know that usually people sign up by the end of December. And then we just get everyone kind of settled in. So we'll say the 30th of December is best to join by then.
Good for us to know. And if you have questions for us individually that you're just too afraid to ask, please write us individually.
Yeah, write us, email, however you want to do it. Yes, there's payment plans. They're on I just put the link there and you can find them there. And if you need a special payment plan, let me know as well, because I can work those out for you. Okay. So did you get the new image from Kat? I just emailed it.
I hadn't gone through last time I saw it. So
okay.
Yes, now I have it.
So okay, perfect. So I have her as number 3. So we can start first with critique. And if your image is up, you can unmute yourself because we like to chat with you a little bit about what's happening in your image.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then I lost the Zoom screen here. Just again to say, so if this is your first time being critiqued or not, even maybe if you have been critiqued or you're like, I just want to share that like the reason we unmic again is not because we're expecting perfection or like you might be nervous or a little sweaty at the beginning unmiking, but it's actually really helpful to know what direction you were trying to take your image, because then we can give you the proper advice. So this is the other thing. I thought I would just maybe talk a bit about critique before we started, and you can correct me or chime in. Critique to me is very much not about right or wrong or whether you achieved something or failed at something. To me, critique is what can we do in the future? So when we talk about like, okay, well, this is what we might anticipate, or here's what I might have done, or moved a little bit to the left. It doesn't matter if someone was on your left and you could have moved to the left. That's not really the point. The past isn't really the point. The future is the point. So it's like, how far left could we have gotten to get a better picture? And to me, it's just about like possibility. And I believe strongly that the way that we improve is by reflecting on our work and opening up different pathways in our brain to think about possibilities. And so I think of these as like puzzles or brainstorming opportunities and so like solution driven, critiques, so that we can actually give you actual tools in the future to go out and get the thing. So to me, critique is really exciting because again, it doesn't matter if it's perfect. That's not the point. Otherwise, you wouldn't have given it to us. I'm guessing, right? And it's not even about validation. Like I don't look at an image to say, okay, I'm going to validate this photographer. My thought is you're as excited as I am to improve the image. And so then we're going to go forward and do that together. I just wanted to share that because sometimes critique is harsh and quick and doesn't give you a lot of information. And I feel like we kind of do it the opposite.
Right.
And so just if you're like, again, if you're sweating, which I say that because I think a lot of people do sweat about this kind of stuff. Just don't worry about it. It's not about like, this does not determine whether you're good or not. I have lots of photos that you can critique. A good photo can be critiqued. So anyway, okay. So with that in mind, we'll start with Kat because she has unmiked before. And so you can lead the way. Yeah. So hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Okay, so you switched. So tell us about, well, thanks for volunteering for one, your image. And then 2, tell us about this and let us know what were you trying to do? And if you have any specific questions about it.
So I was photographing a baptism and the family has like 6 kids and the little kid with the glasses is just a riot. And I was more interested in how they were getting through the hour-long mass.
Mhm.
And I was focusing on, what they were doing as siblings. The way that they were playing rock, paper, scissors and just being silly.
And do you have any questions that you would like us to address just before we guess? Or like, did you what was it like for you shooting it? Do you feel like you got what you wanted?
There were other shots where the facial expressions were a bit more exciting. I did feel a bit uncomfortable photographing in the church, and just focusing on them, and I was trying to stay with it.
Yeah.
So that was a bit awkward because people are like,
Uh-huh.
you're gonna photograph the baptism, right? And the baby's over there.
Yeah. So you have to be confident turning away from the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is fine.
yeah, it's always like I like the composition and all that. But yeah, it's always a balance between like the more interesting facial expressions and the kind of tidy composition. So
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. The story, is it enough? I don't know. What do
Okay.
you?
I just wanted to see what was on your mind before I just rambled at you about it. You know this, but I'm going to repeat it anyway, because you already kind of mentioned it. But the best thing to do in this scenario is obviously follow through. So when I say follow through, this is like, if you could take away one thing from today, everybody, including everyone who already knows this, the best thing possible is this: stick with something 2 to 3 times longer than you think that you should, right? So sometimes we're so afraid of staying with something because we think we have to get it in one shot, or a real photographer gets it in one picture. That's not true at all. It's not even close to true. It takes time, right? So I like to think of photographs like paintings. They're layers. We don't just paint a painting. You have to layer the colors in order for it to look dynamic, right? I assume I cannot paint very well. That's one craft I did not do well at. But these things, so you build on them. So Catherine, the thing for you would be to stay as long as possible, which you already said you are. So that's great. Like, that's already a win. And you also already said, and the reason to stay would be this: you have time to look around and consider all the things that you are interested in and all the things that support what you're interested in, right? So we're looking at both the siblings, both also the people around them, and then potentially the church. So, when I'm looking at this, for me, I don't know what kind of for you, Ashley, but like at first I wondered, do we crop actually this face out? So this dad, I'll assume it's the dad. Is it the dad?
Mm-hmm.
Is not giving you too much in this scenario. So my brain will decide, okay, who am I including that's going to support my story? And in this case, he's not. He may, if he does support it, then he can stay in. But if he continues to not support it, I might actually cut him out. And then I would have to decide, once I've done that, like, because you can cut right to here and you'll see, maybe I should actually just do it so you can have an idea. You can see how less he takes, see how much more he doesn't take away as much from the kids when you can't see his eyes. So sometimes simply just taking the eyes out of somebody around them makes a big difference, because the eyes are what give us away in terms of how we're feeling. And if they have like a kind of neutral expression, the eyes are what do that. Does that make sense? It just makes it fall flat.
Yeah.
In person, you could consider doing this. This is just post, obviously. In person, you could consider, whether you can somehow include the little girl instead, because that's, I'm assuming, again, the sister, like she's maybe giving you something, but maybe she's not at all. And we just go kid and dad. In person, to do this, to make this adjustment, you either have to be closer or like coming down a bit. And that actually may give you enough of a pew feeling that you can still get the idea of the church, because that's one thing I'm considering is, do we need to see that it's in a church? So the other option is actually pulling back, maybe looking down a bit, so we still don't have dad as featured as much and the actions on the kids, but then we have an idea that we are in a church and they're completely ignoring what everyone else is looking at. In a perfect world, it'd be great if all the heads were looking one way and the kids were doing their thing. In another perfect world, it'd be great if the expressions, well, he's actually fine, but it's this one. You're really waiting for this one. And so that's where the follow through helps you, right? And you're already aware of that. You're trying for that. And the other thing is like, the reason it's a practice, again, which you addressed, is the discomfort of turning away from the main event. But turning away from the main event is perfectly acceptable because you are storytelling and the main event isn't always the story. Like sometimes it is. If you ignore the baby for the entire baptism, I don't think your client's going to be too happy, but that's not what you're doing, right? You're taking the time to look at what interests you when the time is right. So I'd encourage you to just keep doing that. I think it's the right thing. And like, you know this, but there's lots of times where I'm shooting that I quite literally am like, I like to describe it as this, going, "Ah," in my head, like going, oh boy, like I'm just staying there. So I am uncomfortable sometimes, but I'm comfortable with that discomfort to the point where that doesn't happen as much, but I definitely stay there. And I just go like, well, I'm sure they think that I'm, like the worst photographer, but oh, well, I know, I see the future, I know what I'm going, and I trust myself. So that's like something you build up over time. And the only way to build trust in yourself is to actually do it and have that experience, get your reward, whatever. And so then that way you'll actually feel comfortable doing it the next time. So I think you probably addressed most of what I had to say yourself, which I think is great. But those are the things I'd be looking for: the expression, cutting out the people that don't contribute to it, and you want it to be exaggerated. They want the moment to be exaggerated. Ashley, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, that was pretty much exactly, it boils down to what I was going to say is with it pulled back.
Oh, sorry.
Whoa, no.
I'm trying to look at the chat. I can't do both. I'm so bad at that. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say the same thing. I would need the exaggeration of everyone kind of looking forward.
Yeah.
And paying attention to this, and they're doing this, or as Jenna said, cropping it in and pulling it that way. The other thing I was just going to mention in terms of getting that courage to turn away from the baptism for long enough to do this, I think that things you can remind yourself in this situation, it's easier to do it knowing that these two, if I understood correctly, are part of the baby's family.
Yeah.
It would be different if it was like just some friends of like more removed, right?
The cousins. So yeah, close enough, I think.
Yeah, but so it's part of the family still. And I think that those are like when I'm feeling nervous, I start trying to justify things to myself in that way. Like if you need to, just find justification so that you can do it anyway, even if you can't find the justification. But for me, I'm like, but they're part of the family. Like they're gonna they need this. Like this is what's happening. This is the story. Compared to if it's just like regular church goers that aren't part of the family, right?
Yeah. It would be parts of the church that otherwise I'd just be sitting there, like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Other babies are getting baptized and stuff, so I kind of thought I might as well not be here. I could just
totally, especially with other babies.
Actually, now I want to go back
those kids
and
I
don't want to go back to church with them and just photograph them in church.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anytime.
So this is another example, I think, of where you have the opportunity for something universal too, right? You're speaking to the universal experience of being bored to death in an hour-long mass, right? So it's like, that's understandable, right? So when you're a kid, it doesn't matter whether it's mass or, whatever school, it's like a long thing will drown a child. Like they're just like, So, you do have that opportunity to tell a wider story that goes even beyond what you're hired to do, which is interesting.
Yeah, boredom. Yeah, I like that. He washed his face in the holy water. This is okay.
Yeah. Really? Do you have a picture of that?
I didn't really get a good picture. I got a picture, but not a good one. But
you tried. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Thank you so much.
That's
Jenna,
you're welcome.
Comment down here.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to address that too. Okay, so D. So he or she or they say that we could crop it vertically. So what I would say is vertical is an interesting discussion. Because, okay, so you also said, but the adults would be cropped out. So I don't mind vertical photos. Vertical photos are fine. One thing I don't like, you can ignore this, it's just my own opinion. I don't like cropping out of intention. So you can, there's no rule against it. But I do find that when you crop out of your original intention, there's a feeling that comes with photographs that are just a bit off. And sometimes we can't put our finger on that as a viewer of what it is. There are people that are really good at cropping out of intention, and I would argue their intention while shooting was to crop. So it's a much bigger discussion, and it can be done really well. Every rule can be broken. That's why I'm saying this is just an opinion. So if you were to do it in person, I would say that could help. But I also have an asterisk to that, which is to say, I don't encourage, or I encourage students not to crop to cut out environment. I think when, wait, sorry, not to crop, let me rephrase that. Not to go vertical as a way of cutting things out. I encourage people to go vertical when the content is vertical. So when the content requires that space for you to understand what's happening, then I think vertical really works. But when you're using it to crop things out, I find it doesn't work as much. And just try that out in the field and see. Yes, for next time. Yeah, in person, I think is different than cropping in post. But then, like I said, just this extra thing, just try this out. Anyone can try it as an experiment. When you crop things out vertically just to get rid of stuff, it doesn't feel as good as when you make it vertical based on the content. So one way that I encourage people to practice that is to basically shoot horizontally almost always, and then you'll know when vertical is required. So if you force yourself to go horizontal. So it's like, I think I had said this yesterday, something like, the best way to learn something is almost to practice its opposite, right? So if you want to be good at verticals, stick to horizontals, and verticals are harder. So flushing out exactly what a horizontal does and how it works is going to help you know when to go vertical. So a longer discussion, people always have questions about verticals, but that's my like sort of sum it up thing. So hopefully that's helpful, or at least food for thought. So thanks for that question, because that's kind of interesting. Okay, I can't see the name here because I've
Cindy.
Okay, great. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for sending us a photo.
Oh,
There you are, Cindy.
thank you for taking the time to put this together.
Yeah.
So this is a picture I took. I volunteered to, I watched the ballerinas. It was my daughter's recital, and I volunteered to be backstage. But like a few days before, my lens broke and the autofocus was not working. So it was like a whole ordeal to try to photograph them behind the scenes while manually cropping, manually focusing. And like the light was horrible. But I got this picture because I found it interesting how like they kind of like move like a whole. Like if one of them will go to the door, they all go to the door.
Yeah.
If one of them sits down, they all sit down. It's like, so that was like part of what it was interesting to me at the beginning. And then when they were in the circle, like just the micro interactions that were happening. So I took the picture.
Cool. Okay. Do you mind if I go first, Ash, or do you,
Go for
you
it.
jump in if you ever want to?
Oh, I will.
Okay. If you're like, I want to go first, then just tell me.
Okay.
I think that's a great observation that they move as a pack. I think that's really interesting. What I would consider with that is a series. So getting an image of them here, getting an image of them there, getting an image of them here, and showing that together, because it's going to be hard in one photo to as exemplify that, like the pack-like nature of the kids. But I think that's really interesting. So keep that in mind. That would be an interesting story. You can actually, this is the kind of thing you can go back to, which I always think is exciting. You could probably do this again because she'll have another backstage probably, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which is, I think that's really fun. So within that, that's what I would like be aiming for. There's like a mini assignment for you if you want. I think that's really neat, and illustrate over a period of photographs, because again, it's going to be hard over one. But then within each one, of course, each picture has to be strong in its own right. So to strengthen this one, I think this is really interesting with all the kids. But the first thing that I go to is just action. And so one thing to make a photograph more interesting is to get away from just the action. So what you said was that you were interested in the micro interactions, which I also like now that you say that. So two things that stuck out to me after you started talking was that and the ballet clothes. So I didn't know, I mean, I should have noticed, but it's not the first thing that stuck out to me is that they were in ballet clothes. I noticed they were all together crafting. So one of my first thoughts was to adjust the composition to show or emphasize the ballet clothes on them. So if you come down here, like down this way a little bit, just a little, not a ton, but just a little, you'd be able to see these three girls are all in ballet clothes, and this one is also in ballet clothes. So that emphasizes that they're backstage, or that they're before a dance performance, or after, or dance class, or, you know, whatever, as opposed to just girls at a party. So it just, again, emphasizes that one little interesting fact. The other thing you could do is if you came down here, so between these two kids, we could actually focus more on this interaction. So because the interaction is important to you, we want it to take up more real estate in the frame, so more space. Whereas right now, the most important thing too is actually when I do this, I'm just using this to illustrate, it's actually quite small. So our eye doesn't necessarily go there right away. I think my eye generally goes right here first. Another way that you can test this is by flipping things upside down. Okay, when I turn this upside down, it goes here. So this is a great way of looking at a photograph as just a visual if you're trying to remove yourself from the content. I love this trick. So my eye goes here. So in person, consider what you think is the most important and how to focus on that particular thing when your focus works. And it's not so hard because of course you're manually focusing, and give us more space to see that. It doesn't have to be only their hands. I'm not suggesting it be only their hands. I like seeing all the girls together, but just a little bit more. So again, if you came down and angled it towards these guys, you'd have the ballet suits kind of in the front. You'd see the ballet in the back here, this ballet, and then you would get their interactions here. That's one suggestion I have based on what you said. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's very helpful because like I like the picture, but I don't know how to make it better.
Yeah.
Like and because it was also kind of hard to photograph from the top. I'm kind of short. So
I was going to mention, and this is again one of those things you have to be brave on, but I see there's a chair to the left here.
yes.
Don't be afraid to stand on things.
Okay.
I know it feels weird and like can feel kind of awkward. And if you're able to do it, like here's how I'm picturing it when I was hearing you talking about how they move in a group. And I love Jenna's suggestions about, showing these things. And I'm picturing being able to see another way to emphasize that they're ballerinas and they're doing all these, they're doing this activity backstage or whatever it is if you had all of their little buns looking down at this activity from way up above, right? So their circle of little buns set up. I think that would also be a really great way to illustrate that. Both of those things, that they're ballerinas and that they're doing this little group activity. But again, you might need to get up on top of the chair, or you're going to have to try and, which is something we sometimes do, is try and get it up there without looking, or if you have a screen, you can flip down and look that way. There's different things. So I would be trying, it seems like they would be sitting here for a little while. And so you could try a number of things to try and get the point across that you're trying to make.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to expand on that too. I know so it'd be quick, but why not? We're just gonna keep going. Is that like based on what Ashley said about going up and with the buns, I totally agree. Because one other like that, I didn't think of that, which is great. One other thought I had when I looked at this in the beginning, before I heard you say anything, was another thing you could do is play with motion here so that you could have like all the hands kind of moving quickly. So if the hands were moving fast, you could slow your shutter down and emphasize like just the like busyness of little girls doing things, and that would work with the composition of with the buns. And then I just wanted to say as a wrap up, like a quick generic piece of advice for anybody in a similar situation, meaning not about little girls that dance, but just when you have a bunch of content and you're trying to get across a big idea, is with a lot of compositional elements, is just focus your brain on what is sticking out to you the most and those details to make sure that you're emphasizing those, not that you're zooming in on them, but that they're being emphasized in the frame. That's the big takeaway that would apply to any composition, really.
Right. I just want to really quick while you're going to the next photo, or were you done, Jenna? Sorry.
Yep, I'm done.
Cindy, have you seen Laura Gutierrez's work?
Yes, she we are both from Mexico.
Oh,
I don't live in Mexico anymore, but yeah.
Yeah. So I was automatically thinking of her with her, if anyone hasn't seen it yet, but she does a great series on her daughter doing ballet. And granted, the majority of those images are just with a single person, her daughter. She does have some other ones with the class and things like that, and they're really beautiful. And some of them she uses motion blur to.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea to add that element of movement.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, can you read the names for me? Because for some reason I can't.
I can. So this is from Chris. Chris with a K.
Hi.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Okay, tell us about this. Jenna, you can go ahead. I don't know why I'm.
I was gonna say, yeah, no, you can go ahead. We're together. I was gonna say, tell us about it. You nailed it.
Well, the girls, the girls were helping out with their mother in the kitchen. The family, what they do is they integrate the kids, helping out in doing all different types of activities and chores, cooking, doing dishes and stuff. The mother was doing the dishes with them. So you can see a lot of the dishes on the right-hand side mostly were done, and then she walked away. So I was trying to get a shot of the daughter trying to wash the pan by herself.
Okay, so is that what stuck out to you the most in that scenario, was her working on her own?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. It helps us, and there, again, just to like be a broken record, but it helps us to know what you're trying to emphasize, because then we can actually help give you advice. Sometimes we'll give it, the opposite of what you're trying, but if I'm guessing, I'm not going to start at the right place. So it's good to know. So with that in mind, knowing that you cared a lot about her trying to do this pan, I think we need to see more of the pan. So I think you have to come over to the side, or from above. But I think from above, and I try to work out what my brain does in real time, so you have an idea of how it might actually photograph. I think from above is going to be actually too much about the pan and less about the fact that it's a little kid. So there could be little hands working on it, but it wouldn't emphasize the weight of it, or I don't think. So from the side, just this little baby is blocking her. It's blocking you showing her independence, unfortunately, in this situation. So I think coming from the side would show that. And then you have to look for signs of struggle. And you're essentially looking, like, we're always just trying to exaggerate the real moment, right? So it's like this is the only example I can think of, when you get married and they're like, put on more makeup because it shows up better on camera. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm trying to like advocate for the beauty industry. I'm just saying this, we emphasize like makeup for stage. It's similar in photography in that we want to emphasize little moments need to be emphasized in order for us to understand them as a viewer. So we do that with where we're standing, how we compose, right? Like obviously they don't do it for us. We do it with our body positions. So we're looking for signs of struggle or determination or joy or whatever it is that she is going to give you. You may have trouble with this because the baby is in your way, which is cute, but it's going to be in your way from a lot of angles, right? So this is where I might suggest you think of, I'll suggest some other ideas as well, which is you could show, like, one way to show that it's just the kids, if we make it less about the pan itself, you could show the kids doing the dishes by themselves, and you would actually, in that case, back up. So you'd emphasize, and the reason we would back up in that case, you don't have to do this is just a suggestion. If let's say you're in the field and you can't get the pan photo to work, you want to do something to show the independence, you could back up, and the backing up would show a lot of context with no parent, which would emphasize the fact that they're alone. So if you're up close, the closer you get, for example, again, I'm only using this to illustrate, the closer we get, the less we like, a parent could be anywhere. We can guess that there's a parent anywhere. It's like, they're not necessarily alone. But when we back up and we show the space, we can say, oh no, there is nobody there right now. By another token, if there is someone there the whole time, maybe that's not the story you want to tell, and you want to include the mom to a certain extent, right? I'm just giving you ideas. But if you want to show them independent, use that space to do that. And then you'd be looking again for moments or gestures between them. So composition itself doesn't make a photograph. Once we compose nicely, we have to watch for gesture or moments, subtle things between the people in the images that give us a feeling of the place and time and what's happening, right? So that's one way that you could show independence if the pan doesn't work for you. But those are my two initial ideas. Do you want to add anything, Ash?
Nope, I think that nailed it.
Do you have any questions, Chris?
Oh, well, I just remember as you're explaining all that, there are a series of photos that I had taken with them doing dishes, helping with their mom showing them how to do the dishes. Also at one point, the mother had looked over and the baby had that little red thing in her mouth.
Oh.
So it was just, there was a series of photos and then she had just walked away. So it was that one particular one because the older daughter has her hand up on her hair, kind of like, phew, this is so much.
That's what I thought too.
It is really cute. That gesture is really cute. And actually, and this is, and this is why I love about critique, is that we can talk about ideas and theories and things that you need in a photograph, whatever, but you need actual images to illustrate them, right? So when we see real life versions, we go, okay, I can see where this is or isn't working. So maybe there's a photo that works that from the day, but we're discussing this one and it's very helpful to everyone to be able to look at it. This gesture is adorable, but it's not the primary focus of either. It's not your focus or your composition, because your whoops, sorry, I'm so clicky. I tried to adjust the Zoom screen. Your composition is like kind of centered here. So let's just try this for fun. You know, we go, maybe my eye bounces between here. So once you identify what you really love, you know, we have to make sure that's what our eyes go to first. So we do that as a photographer, then we do that as an editor. So we crop and we tone, all to bring the viewer's eyes right to what the most important thing is. So this is adorable and may happen again. This is one of my favorite things about little girls, is how they palm their hair away from their face. I never get sick of it. I watch it all day long for years. I love it. And now my kids do it and I'm just obsessed. They just do this all the time. And it's one of my favorite things ever. So I think it is a worthy thing to take a photograph of. But it requires like a lot of concentration and thought to get us as a viewer to that. Now, this can also emphasize a different moment. Like a gesture can be a complement to another greater moment, right? The gesture doesn't have to be only the photograph. And that's the balance, is figuring out, am I taking a photo just of a gesture or of a tiny thing, or is that tiny thing complementing the greater image? And I enjoy that kind of struggle, like what's what. And that's like big in our discussions, in photography discussions, I think in general. But yeah, so yeah, focus literal and metaphorically, and then deciding what's supporting, what's the main stage, what's supporting, and how much real estate is all that taking up in the frame.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And again, I'm sure anybody repeat this stuff all the time, but just like when you ask a question, like if you're nervous to ask a question, there's probably 3 other people who have the same question. And it's just like putting up a photograph is so helpful to everybody else because they're not sweaty about their own image. You know what I mean? And so this illustrates stuff that we all come across in the field. And now we can apply the information for everyone else. So thank you to everybody that submitted. But yeah, thanks, Chris. Okay.
This is Amanda.
Amanda?
Mhm.
Amanda, feel free to unmic. Hi.
Hi, Amanda.
How are you? Oh, I don't know if I can hear you.
Yeah, you can't wait.
You're unmiked, but we can't hear your voice. Give it a second and then. Maybe you need headphones or something.
No, still can't hear you.
Do you have earphones or anything nearby that might have a mic in them?
Down on the bottom where your microphone is, where it says mute and stuff, you're on your laptop? Yeah, are you on your laptop? Yeah, okay, so bottom left corner where there's the arrow, where the microphone is, if you click that, and then it should say like internal microphone or you know, something like that, and you should be able to click. Oh, okay. Well, do you want to try and figure it out while we'll go to the next one and we'll try and try to figure that out? Okay. So we'll go to the next one and come back to you. And you can just write us in the chat. You should be able to like do a mic test and everything under that arrow that I just talked to you about.
And if you can't figure it out, Amanda, you can type in the chat what you want us to know. Like what's the most important thing that either you have a question with or that you were struggling with that you'd like us to address?
Yeah.
While we look at the next person, because that might take you a second. Okay.
Hey, Jenna, do you think I could go next? Sorry, I think I'm losing the battle here with Margot.
Yeah, I just saw her. Hi, Margot. Okay, yes, go ahead. Okay, Megan, tell us about what you were doing, where you were going.
Okay, so this is at preschool and all these boys are going in for a hug, but I love the texture of their hair and I love how close they are. And then I love the little ear on the shoulder. Mm-hmm. So I tried to do that.
Okay. So I really like where you're going with this as well. and I don't know if who will agree or disagree. So Ash, you tell me what you think. This is maybe an example of where I think, like, was it crop? Did you shoot it square? Like, do you have a square setting on your camera?
No, but I had the intention.
You did
I
have the
remember what you
intention?
said about keeping, if you want to crop to square, put the subject in the center.
Yeah. Okay. Because something about it feels just like, I don't know.
It's a little too condensed
It
almost.
feels
Too off.
cropped. Yeah.
Yeah.
Granted, that could be, so in that case, then maybe if you were also intending it, so good that you were thinking that in the field, that's great. Maybe it just means you're too close. I don't know, is there any other space down here in your real photo, like the uncropped image of his, like more of his neck? Maybe I just need like a tiny
more
bit of
neck.
breathing room.
Sure, I can go back to the file and look.
Okay.
And
So
then
I think, photography is so like, I use the word nuance every time I'm teaching, but it's so nuanced. I think this is like one of those photos that is going to be like micro adjustments are going to make a difference, because there's nothing inherently wrong with this. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I have no like X, this isn't working. It is something that is really nice, but because we're so close to this head, I think that it's too much of this particular head that our eye doesn't enjoy the other hair as equally. So you may have that in your original photo. I don't 100% know. You'd be lucky if you did, because you could just back up a bit. In real life, you would just back up a bit. The other trick is the focus is on the shoulder here. So that's part of that is probably how you're shooting it in terms of like, because I know that you're shooting for blur most of the time. So this might be a case where you have to consider just slightly adjusting or making sure the focus isn't going to be on something that isn't important. So in this case, it looks like a missed focus versus, this is sharp and this is blurry. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And for some reason that feels off to us. So it's like a feeling. A lot of stuff in composition or photographs is like how it feels in the end. And this is one of those things. So the crop feels too tight and the focus just feels off versus intentionally shooting that way, which I know you were, because I know that you shoot with the shutter intentionally. It just landed on his shoulder, unfortunately. So ideally you would have maybe focus on like here-ish so that you could actually see the texture of the hair. I know it's hard to parent and listen to this stuff, but so this would be one scenario where you might have to actually change your shutter, because you would go, okay, no, I know I need this now. This is actually going to be a very still image. There's not motion. Motion is not required for us to enjoy this. And so then we have to consider that. Not that it has to be tack sharp, but just that you might have to adjust to compensate for that. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot. Thank you. I'm still when to go super slow and when to not. So that's good.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so if you're working that out, keep in mind, like, when is motion needed?
Yeah.
When is it needed? And like, go ahead.
When there is motion, or when the people are moving, I don't know, sometimes when there's a feeling, I feel like slowing the shutter down emphasizes that feeling.
Yes. And so I was going to say, most people are having to insert, when do I use motion? You're the opposite. You're going to have to figure out, when do I stop using motion? Because you're not wrong in using it for a feeling. I think that makes a great feeling. So when something is particularly still and you want to emphasize the stillness, that's when Megan is going to change her shutter. Does that make sense? So you're going to think in opposites. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'll have to turn my screen off, I think.
That's fine. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us.
Okay,
good luck.
thank you.
Bye, Margot.
Bye.
Okay.
So we can go back then to.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything to that?
No. I think.
Agree. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, most people are the opposite, right? You're going to have to figure out when to add in motion. So for everyone listening, keep that in mind. When you're shooting, is motion required in order for us to feel an image? That's a fun thing to think about. And you can go ahead and try that. Amanda, do you feel ready, or do you want me to move?
She wrote in the. Amanda,
oh, she wrote. Okay, great.
So I'll read it.
Go ahead.
Or
this is her, right? Is this yours?
No. Back.
Yes.
There we go. Okay. So she said, the photo was taken right after the ceremony, and the bride and groom had taken a walk around the pond. And this is the photo where they're coming back to join their families and wedding party. I really love the emotion on the couple's faces, but I kind of wish I would have gotten a bit closer to their faces, was somehow trying to keep the bridesmaid in the left side of the photo to give some context.
Okay. One, are you shooting? You can just nod. Are you shooting on a zoom lens? No, it's a fixed lens. Oh, is it okay? And then is it mirrorless?
She's on the X.
So, okay, so it's like a 35. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a scenario where what you're wanting is probably an 85 millimeter shot. And so, and I am saying that because I know so well how the 35 work, the 35 or the 23 on the, because 23 is like a 34, right? How that lens works, because I love that. And one thing I encourage people to do, like, or I really do say it, I said it yesterday, is like shoot on the 35 for as long as possible, because then you'll know when you need an 85. This is an example of when you need an 85. I'm not saying that you should have switched to an 85. If you had one, that'd be great. But just in terms of what your brain is wanting, because you like the moment plus the bridesmaid, that is what's happening here. So just so you know, that's what you're looking for, is an 85. So the 85, sorry, so I guess on a mirrorless, that would be, the equivalent would be a 56. Okay, so when I say 35, 85, I mean 23, 56 on a mirrorless. I'm saying that for everybody else, because I find that the 85 shoots like the 35, but with compression. So it's like when we think in the 35 way, like when our brain does this, we're like, I shoot, you have it. Okay, great. Do you have 2 on your body? Yeah. Do you have like the leather stuff? Okay, so this is a scenario then where you're going to go 56, 56, 56, and then 23, 23, 23 on the other side, or however you do it. Okay, so that's what you're going to do. Now you're going to like sling your stuff and look really impressive. So I think what you're doing is already correct in the sense that you're anticipating them coming. And what I think you have the right moment. Like I agree that you need the bridesmaid, because without the bridesmaid, you just have the exciting people, but like, what are they looking at? And that's like the #1 mistake that wedding photographers make, mostly because weddings are so like exciting, is that there's always lots of faces that are like, ah, and there's no context as to why people are smiling or doing anything. So the action reaction is here, which is great. So okay, so I'm doing both things. One, confirming what your brain wants is the 56. Okay, so when they're far away, that's what you want, and then you can just switch over. But since we're looking at the image, I'm going to continue to say what to do here for yourself and for other people. So what I would do is kind of what already what you're doing, but you're just going to continue. You're just going to keep following through. So when the couple comes towards them, you're anticipating that they're going to get closer and closer. And then this image, if she were right here, then the 23 or the 35 would be perfect for you. So you'd be using that camera. I think I have this on this side for me. You'd be using that camera, that lens, to capture that portrait if they're close together. Now, in real life, this moment happens where this moment happens. And that's why I'm saying you follow through, because now I'm going to the other side. I'm imitating what it's like to sling them around. Okay, so now I'm on the left. So now I've got the 56. I'm getting this, and this is where the 56 will get the picture. I'll still do it with my 23 just to be safe, to get more and more, but in the end, I'm going to choose this one. So yeah, so it is helpful for me to know actually like kind of what you were hoping for, because I think that is the solution. But of course, you can't go back in time, and you can't just change a lens or crop it. If you didn't know that, you know, I might have talked more about like, you know, just kind of cleaning up, or like you might not need these people, like something like this. They're not really contributing, so maybe something more like that. This guy's kind of annoying, but in person, maybe you could switch out, like that might be a cleaner image. You also like, what I like is that you've got the 2 bodies here actually, because too much of a blob, like if you have shoulders like this, that's kind of boring. It's like hard to distinguish what it is, like blobby shoulders. So I try not to, as a wedding photographer, I trained myself not to go over shoulders unless I needed to go over shoulders. So I did in the beginning for sure a ton, and then I just cut it out completely. So it's really easy to shoot over someone's shoulder. And then I was like, oh, this is all the same. It's all blobby, you know, it's all a shoulder in every picture. And it's like, again, just a little bit too much like that. And so I just cut that out as a rule, as a thing that I added to it. But again, the real takeaway here is just follow through, and then hopefully things work for you the right way. And in your case, it's just a change of lens in a wedding scenario. No, I don't bring the 56. I'm just being transparent. I don't bring the 85, sorry, the 56 or the 85 to family sessions, because I never use it. I shoot on the 35 just the whole time. And so I don't want to carry it around. It's too heavy for me. But in a wedding, I have those 2 on me all the time. And I use the 85 or the 56 equivalent maybe 10% of the time. And the 10% are very important. like they're integral to it. Is there anything else? I feel like that was such an easy thing to give you feedback on. Is there anything else that you have questions about with that, or does that clear it up for you? I want you to get a takeaway. So do you feel like you have one? Okay, great. And Ash, you're back. Did you, anything you wanted to add?
I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself. No, I think you
Great.
got it.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I'm trying to think like, yes, I'll just stop. We covered it. Sometimes I just want to keep going. Well, now I have to because I was rambling. All I was going to say was like, again, without the context, this would be, if you didn't have them and you didn't want the blobs, like say the people weren't giving you anything, you could go for something like this. But in this scenario, just for other people, and you probably already know this, you could, based on what I just said also, which is that you just have people smiling, you would need them to look at each other and do this, not be looking out. Because if we're looking out, we want to know what the context is. But if they're walking down the aisle and looking at each other, that's what I'm looking for in that particular moment, because they're having the moment and I don't necessarily need the foreground to explain it. So anyway, that was probably unnecessary, but I thought I would share it anyway. Okay, thanks, Amanda.
Okay, Paulina?
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's been a while since I submitted an image for critique, so this is an exciting opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, oh, that's fun. Yay. Okay, tell us about this. Yeah.
This was from a 2-hour in-home documentary session, and during my 2-hour sessions, I have a little bit of time when we do post portraits to make sure that they have a group picture of all of them looking into the frame and smiling. And with this family, they have 2 little boys, and the first hour was so hectic. There was it was very hard to get all of them in one frame, let alone like get a quiet moment of all of them in one frame. And then for the second part of the session, we went upstairs, and parents wanted to read to kids in bed because they do it sometimes. And because kids were running around for the first hour, they were, I guess, out of energy. So I suggested, how about we get one picture of all of you laying on a bed, just, lay on your belly and look at me. So we did that. And there was a good picture of all of them looking and smiling. And then there were good moments. And then this happened. And this was just this really nice transition to the other activity. But it was such a natural moment for them. And during the first part of the session, I noticed that mom and dad are very affectionate, and they are showing it to the kids. Like they're not the type of family where like they are kissing each other behind the closed door. So I was really excited when this happened, and as you know, I've been shooting for a while. I am in business for documentary photography for a while. So the more I go, the less pictures I take that make me excited. Right, like so often there is a picture that I know clients would love the picture, but I know I have a better variation of the same moment. But this was a picture that made me happy, and I submitted just to hear your thoughts and to hear how two of you feel about this picture.
Okay. Okay. So I have 2 questions. Is what made you happy about it just that it's so hard to get a natural but also a pose type of photo? Like, what made you happy?
What made me happy is that I felt like this is just such a great summary of this particular family in one frame. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt like maybe this, I guess this is the question. Is it really a good picture, or was I excited because of how hectic the first part of the session was, mm-hmm. and how hard I was working to get some pictures of 4 of them in one frame, and then like this happened, and it was a moment as opposed to, them posing.
Right. Okay, that's what I wonder. That's what I'm wondering, because I know that feeling as well. So this is not a bad picture by any stretch. There are like things that I can say to improve it, which we can talk about in the image. But probably probably the joy is like, yeah, how hard it is to get the whole family together. And what you're probably excited about is the service that you're providing. Is that correct? Do you think it's a correct take on it? Because I think about our job as like, I think that we have to shoot for ourselves, like shooting what we're the most interested in serves everybody, right? Because we get the best possible pictures for us. That means we get the best possible pictures for our clients. So we sort of term that like shooting selfishly, but some people struggle with that word selfish. So I'm like trying to think of how else to word it, because it's not selfish. It helps everyone. Like we want the best of the artists that we hire, right? And so that's what like the majority of how I think we should approach it. But we're also ultimately a service in the sense that like, I know also people want a photo with everybody in the frame. I know they want to prove that they're all together, and like I have ideas of what I think that they will make them happy. But that doesn't mean I'm shooting the whole time to do that. But it is exciting when you're able to provide something for them that's going to cover all ground, right? And I do think there's this like, it's nuanced. I don't think it should be the only goal. The fire alarm in my building just went off and I was like, oh. So I think that's what's happening. I think that's more what's happening for you. Okay. So that's probably where the joy is coming from. It's not a bad image, but I think the intensity of your joy is from that accomplishment of getting them all together. And the only thing I would say is, but it sounds like that's what you're struggling with. The only thing I would say about this image is it doesn't necessarily tell me anything about you. So if I was to push you individually, I would say, okay, this is a beautiful photo of the family. I can sort of tell that they're, it's a natural photo of them, but I can tell that they're being put together. Like, you know what I mean? That's not necessarily bad. That is what happened. But it doesn't tell me anything about you and what you have to say about them. So that's where I would sort of push you further. So that's a bigger takeaway. That's like more mental. It's like, what do you want from this family? And how could you illustrate their affection in a way that spoke to you personally? I love the idea of taking the concept of this, okay, they're hyper affectionate and they're not hiding their love in front of the kids. I would be taking that idea and photographing it the whole time. I would be like, how can I illustrate this as many ways as possible? And in between, I'd be shooting other things as well. But that idea, I think, is great to like move with you. I love that idea of using a concept kind of like that. Concept photography to me is not like wacky, like abstract. It means taking an idea and trying to photograph that idea. Or that's at least how we use concept, in my opinion, in documentary family. If you are shooting this kind of scenario and you want it to look a touch more candid, like in terms of this image, what I would then do is just try to compose in a way to make it look a little less like a family photograph and more like you stumbled in on the moment. So sometimes slightly messing up your composition can actually give way to that. It lends itself to that. So you've got it beautifully composed. And it's like, I can tell you're a good photographer. Does that make sense? So could you throw it off just a bit to make it look less like a photographer took the picture and more like a moment that you came and happened to witness? And then I'd be watching for, I'd be paying attention closely to like a shift in eye contact. So like, 1 second later, 2 seconds later, he might be looking somewhere else, in which case this, even if you wanted to keep this composition, would make it look a little less like he knew you were there kind of thing. Because one way that I describe a good photograph is when the photographer has removed themselves so that it feels like just the subject and the viewer are alone in the world. Now, to do that, the photographer has to insert themselves incredibly. So it's like, to do that, you have to like incredibly insert yourself in order to remove yourself. That's a theory. It's not like a practical thing, but like we obviously talk about how the ways in which to do that. But one of those things is, one like way to try that is, again, just messing up the composition just a little bit. But having said that, what you're excited about, you've done a good job at. They're going to be excited about that. It's a beautiful image of this family. So I'm hoping that there's a few things that you can work with from that feedback.
Yeah,
does that help?
I shot through the moment, and I would go back to see what are the other images, and I delivered more images from this, and I would check if I have something that more along the lines of what you were saying. And I agree with you 100% about noticing something that is special about this particular family or this particular couple, and then trying to work on it during the session. And this is definitely one of the things that I worked on. There was the whole scene downstairs when kids were like crazy and running around, and parents put on music, and kids were supposed to dance with this music, but they were not interested at that moment. But the couple was dancing, and they were like really having such a good time together. So there are more images from this session that are about two of them, which is it's not always the case from a family session.
Yeah,
but you can see a couple and their relationships. So.
Yeah, that's really fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? Do you think that this would be a better image in black and white? That it would be easier to read at the moment? Are colors distracting?
Yeah, it might work better in black and white. It doesn't necessarily not work in color though either. Like I think it would kind of work depending on what you want to do. Like if you're trying to give across the feeling of the room, like it is more of a portrait type setting. So
yeah.
But yes, in theory, if you wanted to go right to like maybe the feelings, then black and white would work. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'm only going to repeat myself. So I think I've said.
Thank you.
Anything you want to add, Ash?
I would just repeat you too. So
yeah, it's like there are there's all these things. There's all these experiences in talking about photography, and like this is actually, you know, it's great that this comes up because it's like there's excitement in kind of all of it and legitimacy in all that excitement. Does that make sense? So like, you know, just because I am a documentary photographer, it doesn't mean I don't take pictures of my kids that are in cute outfits. You know what I mean? Like, or like I'm a mom. I still like pictures of my kids that are maybe not like my favorite of the photographs. So it's like there's different things, and the discussion of each of those different areas helps narrow down, for example, like what goes in a portfolio. So understanding that you're excited about this because you had to achieve this for the family is actually helpful to know that that's what the excitement is about, and not let's put this in the portfolio because again, it doesn't necessarily speak to me about you, and I want to learn about you as an artist. Ultimately, I'll also learn about them as subjects. Like it's both. Yeah. But it is an accomplishment within a session. So like understanding all of that. Yeah. It's actually
I think
really
this was
important.
my main question about this picture. Is it like a portfolio worthy picture, or am I just excited because I know how challenging it was to work through this session and to get good pictures for them?
Yeah, so I mean, a portfolio worthy picture to me is what speaks to your voice and what you're trying to shoot more of. So if this is what you want more of, it potentially, depending on the other pictures in your portfolio, potentially could go in there. But if it's not necessarily what you want to do every time, then I would say no, right? So it's kind of up to you. It's kind of up to what you're going for. Yeah. Does that help?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. And I think that was a good discussion. God, I love talking about photography. Okay. I just need 2 seconds. Actually, I have to just grab something and I'll be right back. You can, I don't know if there's any questions. Literally 2 seconds.
Does anyone have questions while Jenna's gone for 2 seconds? Anyone want to stretch together? I can lead you in some deep breathing exercises. Come, everybody reach up. There we go. Okay.
Okay, you're not talking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just leading them in stretching exercises.
Oh, great.
Deep breathing.
Okay, so I can't see the name again. So can you read the name for me?
Yeah. Is it Louise or Louis? Oh, we can't hear you. Hold on. Try again. Nope. Still can't hear. Oh, try to. Yeah, this will be available to rewatch for anyone that has to pop in or out. Do you want us to come back to you? And
what was your recommendation for him to test the mic, or the last time you said it?
Oh yeah, in the bottom left corner where the microphone is, and there's an arrow.
Okay.
Oh, there. We hear
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah.
You're here. How are you?
Technologically advanced. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you for critiquing my photo.
Sure.
Do you want to tell us
So-
about it? What you were going for, or what interested you the most?
Yeah, I was struggling with layering in my composition. So this is a double christening from this little one and the one at the back. And this couple have three kids, all girls. And I wanted to, when I got home, I wanted to take pictures that could tell the story of the three children. So when I saw this happening, I wanted to try to layering the three stories from the little one and the one girl at the back that she was sick and that didn't want to dress up for the christening. And that was my main focus, what I wanted to do with this picture.
Okay. I think it's great. I love the idea of trying to like working with all the siblings and trying to get everything. And actually you've got a lot of stuff to work with at your disposal, like the fact that they're interacting with this baby, the fact that presumably dad's interacting with this little one. I do love this really little butt and the socks and the sandals. The moment that she's giving you is not as strong as the other two. And so what I'd be really hoping for is a stronger moment here. Our eye definitely goes toward this middle part. So, you know, playing with whether we need everybody or not, you know, you might want to play with that in person. I have cropped it to where I think it should go, by the way. So this is where I think is the actual, like the rest of it, I think our eye, it's unnecessary and our eyes come away from the moment. This is my favorite. So I do think, like, I am glad that the focus is on dad here, because I think this little interaction is quite sweet. And I think is giving you the best. I'm just looking at the aperture. I think it's giving you that is giving you the best moment. So I would really just be hoping for something just a tiny bit more here. I'm trying to think of examples of what that might be. Or how do you adjust in person so that if they're not taking up as much space? I want this couple to take up more space, but then if we move over, we're going to lose a little bit of that. So I don't know. I'd be making potentially a micro adjustment in the field, making a series of micro adjustments in the field to see what is the best composition for everybody. The thing with layers is that the more you add in, the harder it gets. So it's a funny thing, because it's like it takes a certain amount of talent to get to the point where you see the layers and can put them all in the photograph as it is. But then exponentially the standard goes up on the image, because you need a moment with everybody, right? Whereas like where someone may take like a great moment of a single child in a room, it's actually not as hard to take, but maybe executed better because the moment is fleshed out, the composition is fleshed out, that kind of thing. So it gets a little bit harder when it comes to this. So that's really what you're hoping for. I do think this is really nice. I think the foreground's nice, and I think this interaction is nice. I think that this also, like keeping your focus on them and watching maybe his expressions, if he's looking at his daughter, or like any added interaction between them would lend itself toward this, or potentially trying to clean up where the space is, like the doll and the heads, like maybe even coming down a little bit so the doll comes more into this space here, or the head is up here. That would also help take care of some of this extra composition that you don't need. And trying to remove
my other concern was not to isolate them so that they don't be confused, not breaking the bubble at everyone. So that was my second concern, to do the layering, but separate them.
Yeah,
So
and that's the hardest part about this environment, because it's so busy. So if we take ourselves away from this exact moment, like if I'm not just stuck on this particular image, and let's just say the foreground stays somewhat interesting here, I would be lowering myself and watching just for really something interesting here, or like a way to isolate them and a way for their moment to be particularly interesting and a way for this moment to be particularly interesting. So I think you're really close. I think you can still deliver this, obviously. But that's kind of what you're looking for in order to really pull it together. And then just an editing piece of feedback. I think you can bring the blacks down on this. Like there's a lot of detail in the shadows that doesn't need to be there. So you can bring that down. And then also your editing, we talked about it earlier, how editing helps focus your eye. Right now, the eye really comes to here. So you can burn this down. So like bring these highlights and mid-tones down so that we go over here. So that's one thing you can do with this particular image. You can crop it to here and then you can burn it down. So we come to this faster, and that will help you view this a little bit quicker. Do you want to add anything, Ash?
Nope, that was going to be my suggestion too, is just burning it down a little bit.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think you're already doing this. If that's what it says, like you, as you said, you had this concept in mind of the 3 kids. You just got to stay there even longer. And the moments have to be just as strong as if the foreground wasn't there and as if the background wasn't there. And these 2 in particular, you want it to be as engaging as possible. So this is cute with the dad and the doll, but could it be even more engaging? Yes. And if it was particularly emotional or like more touching, then you could almost forgive the rest. Does that make sense? So you really want to make sure this one is giving you everything you need, and lowering it would essentially help put them up there, I think. Did that help you?
Yeah, it was great. I didn't crop it, and now seeing it like this, it took to another level. Great. I'm very happy.
Do you want to take a screenshot?
For your
Yeah. Do you want to
critique.
screenshot it? That's a good idea. Do you want to screenshot it so that you can crop it afterwards? We can all smile. Yeah, layering is fun. It's thrilling. Yeah. And like I said, exponentially, all of a sudden the standards go through the roof, but it's really fun when you start to see layering. When your eyes start to see it, it's like a whole world opens up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course. Okay.
So here's for Karin.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
Why don't you go ahead and tell us about this and what matters the most to you, or if you have any questions.
Yes, this was my daughter's birthday party, and my goal was to capture every kid she invited. And this is one of her friends, and my goal was to show a little bit of their characters or to tell a little story about them. Yeah, so that's the story about Lenya and her feelings in that moment.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
and
tell us
I
about
also
what
had in
happened.
mind, what was my intention was to capture emotions. But this was not my main goal, but I had in mind that I wanted to capture emotion without showing the face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually think this is it's pretty easy this photo is easy to read, and you've accomplished that in the sense that, like, we know what's going on. We get a feeling from it right away. The way that I would go about improving it would be very slight, which is like just kind of, I would bring your body down just a tiny bit. There's like a small feeling of an adult looking down, which is not always wrong per se, but it's like adult. So let me call that an adult with a camera looking down, because there's a difference between an adult looking down, like, so emphasizing looking down on something, versus like, it looks like you held the camera like this and snapped it. So if you just engage a little bit lower, and maybe we actually give like just a tiny bit more green space, I think, make it more graphic. Like we could almost put her maybe a bit more here, and then we add a little bit more yellow, or we cut out even more. So it's just about her and the grass, like make it even more green and yellow, and then her would help emphasize that even more, I think. So it's just, I think you're at the moment, it's just like a slight adjustment to make it look like you're not a photographer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a general takeaway for anybody, really, is like, how do I make this look like not a photographer, but just a viewer? And there's no direct way to do that all the time. That's one way which you can try it, which is catch yourself if you're just shooting from your height. Because that will read sometimes to the viewer, but it's often like problem solving in the field of how to do that. Ash, do you want to add anything?
No, I was going to say similar is maybe getting a slight bit lower. It does feel a little bit like this is just a technical thing, not, but like we're tilting in some way. I'm trying to figure out which way I'm tilting. That's the only thing. I'm like, wait, is it straight? Is it not? And I think it might be just a little bit where you're standing. But at the same time, I can see you want to emphasize how they're laying with the feet back and things like that. So I'm hesitant to say, oh, take a little bit of a step to square up, which usually squaring up doesn't bother me. Like, I'm not one of those people you have to square up on everything. But yeah, that's the only thing, is because of the lines of the goalpost. It does feel, but again, maybe I have vertigo. I could be
when you say squared up, that's actually interesting, because if you were to square up, so does that make sense to you when we say square up? You go directly towards the content. So you would shift your body this way, or this way if you're looking at me reversed. And what it does, or what I think is that actually could be really interesting, because it'd be so square, so straight on, and so to the point of this child is face down on the grass. And it emphasizes the graphic nature of this visual. So what you're doing here is what I consider like seeing visually. You're drawn to the visual of it. And obviously there's emotion involved, but it's about her face. So it becomes a graphic image. So then you start to think like a designer, and you're like making an image that is graphically and visually pleasing. Mm-hmm. And so you're just playing in the field with like how much green, how much yellow, what angle, and like looking at it directly. Sometimes I find often I find squaring up to something gives it the honor. Like we're looking at the content. It's like, we are looking at you, and we want to look at this. We're accepting this moment. Where sometimes off to the side, we have this like cautious feeling, of like, I'm kind of watching this, as opposed to like, no, we're going to view this image. And so that applies to many situations. This one isn't like a heavy emotional situation that we're afraid to look at, but it applies to things that are. So I think being squared up could be interesting. But essentially, really digging into the fact that this is a graphic image and just trying to make it as beautifully graphic as possible. That being said, I think that you can use this in the meantime. I think that this emotionally works. It's a visual that is received by the viewer. And I would just keep going with that further in the field and push yourself.
Yeah, this would be, what I really like about it is that you can see what your intention was here, with like exactly what you wanted to say with this image. And I think that's wonderful. It would be literally making those just small adjustments to see, how do I say this best, and give really that most impact and make it like really pleasing to the eye, because it is so graphic, like Jenna said.
Yeah. And you know what, like you're saying, I almost wanted to fill it in there. What we're trying to do for all these images is take them from good images to unforgettable, right? Because if we work really hard to make an image unforgettable, well, then client's not going to forget about us. You're essentially securing your place in the market, right? Is that you want to stick into people's minds. You want people to resonate and go, yes, I will never forget that image because it spoke to me so clearly. So that's why we work really hard to take our stuff to that next level. And so we don't settle with being like, yeah, this is great, and then we're done. We're always trying to push. And that's the point of the critique, is that we're pushing to make images that are unforgettable. And again, just not even the point of like trying to be the best in the world or anything, as much as just making an impact on people's lives and creating memories that they take with them, because you worked hard to get that for them. And then of course, strangers resonate with that. They hire you to do the same thing. The cycle continues. But yeah, pushing towards making things unforgettable is a goal of all of this kind of discussion. So, but yeah, thank you.
Yes, I can really see what you mean. And I think this would be a good way to work again in this playground next time.
Was this indoor playground?
Yes, an indoor playground.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely go back.
Oh,
I have this mini noise canceling things for my ears. That's okay then, because I can still hear if someone's
like in the field. you cut out a little bit, but I'm guessing you're saying it's overwhelming, the noise.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's really loud. And you have so much that you hear and see, and so many different so viele Reize. It's just a lot to take, I think.
Yeah.
And also this helps me, this kind of photography helps me focusing on the moments there.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
As to train this, I think.
Yeah, I think being a photographer, like what a nice gift we have of like the ability just to observe the world in a specific way. Like we can focus on these little things. And I find even when we're not taking pictures, how wonderful is that? I just love being a professional observer, you know, and I find myself enjoying life in a way that not everybody gets to, because I just get to see these things happen in front of me. And even if I'm not photographing them, I'm like, oh, that was fun. And for no other reason, just then like I enjoyed observing that, but I feel very fulfilled by that. Yeah, leaning into the creativity of that is, for me, I find very rewarding. And I think that's what I like about sharing that with other people. And anyway.
Sehr gut gemacht, Karin.
Yeah,
yes.
thank you for your thoughts about that.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks for submitting. And whatever Ash said.
I said she did very well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Tiffany asked,
2 left. Okay.
Yeah, 2 left.
Yes.
Tiffany asked, I watched you do critique with Kirsten Lewis on Creative Live, and it seems the message was always square up. Is it okay not to, or should we always square up? I have my feelings on this, but go ahead.
Would you like to go first?
Well,
I can, or can start it and you can continue.
Yeah, well, I'll just start. My feeling is that it's okay not to. Yeah. That's my feeling. My feeling is there was a point in time when I could tell exactly who watched Kirsten's Creative Live, because all of a sudden, like every image was squared up. And to me, you lose a bit of depth sometimes when it is squared up. Not always, but sometimes, you know, there's certain images that you could bring more depth in if you weren't so squared up. To me, it's one of those things. There's certain times that it's going to be really beneficial, and then there's other times that again, you can add more depth, and the image becomes more dynamic when you're not so squared up. So go ahead, Jenna.
What I was going to add to that was yes, 100%. Yes, it's okay not to square up. I think it's a great place to start generally. Because you're looking at what you're doing is looking at the content and you're giving it the best. It's like coming at the gate and giving it the best chance it has at, like, when something's in front of you. Often I find more often than not, squaring up to the content is the most successful thing for it, because the opposite is people are kind of afraid or shying around content. So especially if you're a hesitant shooter, getting to that content first is the best thing for you. Now, having said that, it's like I said, it's a place to start. So you can move from there, adjusting to what the content requires, right? The other nuance, and photography is so nuanced, there's no rule that's black or white. There's no rules that are hard and fast. And that's what I love about discussing about it. And it makes it hard, but it also makes it a fun, lifelong journey. There's one of the nuances of squaring up is, what are you squaring up to? You can square up to content, you can square up to light, you can square up to context, you know, you can square up to one subject, or you can square up to 2 subjects. So squaring up in itself is actually not even a thing that we can discuss as a black and white rule, because what are we squaring up to, right? So it's like you square up to this, like this is still squared up for me. Going from her front would have been squared up for me. Like there's different ways to square up to stuff. And so we experiment, and like what you might see when everyone started to square up to things was maybe just everyone squaring up to something obvious, right? And so then it's like pushing past that obvious squaring up.
I think it was more of the literal, just straight on.
That's what I mean, literal,
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And also, you know, sometimes, like I said earlier, sometimes looking at something straight on is the best way to address a subject matter, because it deserves our attention. But the key is not just looking at it. You also need moment and light and gesture to complement it, right? So like a squared up image alone won't make a good image. And so what, you know, you can also, that's what I love. Again, love and it's difficult about photography is that you've got to add all these things and they've got to work together for you.
It's all nuanced.
So that's my feedback about squaring up. Yeah, hopefully that helped you, Tiffany. Didn't make that too difficult. Okay, okay, great.
Okay, TV.
Yeah, Who's this, right?
Yeah, Tiwi. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Not sure if they're here.
Are you here? Oh, yep.
Okay, good.
Hi. How's it going?
Yeah, very good.
Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yes, you did.
Good, good, good.
Thank
Do
you.
you want to tell us about the image and if you had any questions or what's happening here, what you're most drawn to?
Okay, so it was an assignment for the Lagos State government here in Nigeria. So we were going to the slums, we were going to places where people were actually displaced. So I saw this young woman. In Nigeria, we are divided into tribes. We are from different tribes, even though we're all the same color. So she's from a very different tribe, and all I saw at that moment was our isolation. In particular to our own tribe is child marriage, some things that really happened. So that was why I was actually drawn to her, and that was why I took the image. She was the only young lady amongst a couple of men, like 5 or 6, and this was where they stayed. The environment, I was trying to get to the environment, but I had to shoot very fast because it is very easy to be attacked or when they see you carry a camera. So this is the image I actually got over. So I guess that is it for me. And I love shooting in black and white just for, I couldn't really shoot in color, so I love using black and white. So that's just the story behind the image.
Okay, great. I love black and white too. And I think black and white works here because the light is so stunning that it brings you, like, if it was in color, it would be distracting, I think. So it's the right choice.
Yeah.
Okay. The only trick with my feedback will be that you had to shoot fast because of course there's that nuance, which is like, you're gonna have to do a lot of the thinking in your head with this stuff and maybe not shooting through it in the way that, like, I'm telling Catherine, sit and shoot at a church for 20 minutes facing one way. You're not able to do that. You can only assess that. I can't assess that for you, how long you have. So a lot of the stuff that you'll have to do compositionally will be in your head. This is beautiful. What I think I would do to take this to the next level is, okay, so I'm thinking, how do we illustrate the isolation? The thing here is this phone. Okay, so the phone is the only thing that takes me out of this. So I think you have this opportunity for a really beautiful portrait. And I think that portraits can give, I think portraits can tell a really beautiful story, even if we don't know the exact story of what the portrait is telling, right? So there are some images that a story is required to understand the images, and other times a story adds to the image. This would be a case where the story adds. You're going to probably know that going into it as well. And so that for me is fine. I don't need it to be literally like a person with a kite. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be so literal. So just it almost lends its way to a beautiful portrait. So I'm just going to use the crop tool to show how, like, I'm not saying to make it vertical. I'm just saying when we get rid of the phone, how much more we actually just enjoy that light on her face. So isolating her, like using the light as an indication of how to isolate her. I think that's what I would be listening to. Okay, so sorry, I'm thinking and cropping at the same time. When I take that out, for example, I don't know how you feel about this, but I think I get so much more when I'm just looking at her. I've included the background because of the, if I go this way, you're going to see the phone. Although let's say she puts it down, that would also be an opportunity, is to wait until that is out of the way because she's looking this way. So it'd be nicer compositionally to kind of go this direction. But let's say she doesn't. We're trying to show the background, which you had mentioned that you were trying to show where she's living. It's dark enough here that we can't quite see her hand up there too much. So you can kind of get away with cropping that. But this is the feeling I'm trying to go for here. Using that light, let that light direct you. You have done that. You have chosen so well this little like strip here to keep, like, without this, you wouldn't enjoy this light. So I think that's extremely well done.
Yeah.
But just to push it even further, take that context out for us a little, keep this context in, but not what she's doing literally. And that's what I choose. When I see something that's quite visual, I go toward the visual over the literal nature of it. So it's like visual feeling based storytelling is what you're going to go for in this scenario. So I think you're attracted to all the right things, and it's just like a really kind of a nuanced piece of feedback. Now, in your head, of course, you're going to have to, I don't know how much you're able to shoot or how fast you actually have to go. Only you can know that. So some of this stuff you're going to want to play out in your head, which you must have done in order to get that so well isolated here. But yeah, that's, do you find that helpful? That's what I think, is going towards less literal, going to more towards a portrait or a feeling, and then you fill us in with the story.
Thank you so much. That was
Does
very
that help?
helpful.
Okay, and Ash, do you want to add anything?
No, I think that's perfect.
Okay.
I also love the light.
Yeah, it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. You know, the exception would be if you're telling a story about technology, but the phone's often like, it's a funny thing. We see this all over the world, right? With the phones are in images that like don't necessarily need to be or kind of take us out. Now, I do think you could just crop this. Like I think you have an opportunity to still make a beautiful image out of this now. And then keep that in mind going forward, is how to look. Yeah, how to let light direct you and to look for non-literal versions of what's happening that indicate a greater feeling. So you have taken all the information. So anybody can apply this anywhere. You have all this information about what life might be like for a person, right? Setting, feelings, or like what sticks out to you. Isolation sticks out to you. You know what her life might be like as the only young woman. And so when something is given to you, and like often light is what does it, when something is given to you that illustrates a greater feeling, then you go after that visual. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
You.
Okay, we have a square thing. Yes, I've never squared up my photos. When I started doing it, I felt that the story seemed more near to the viewer. I realized that squaring up meant that I had to be near and more visible to my subject, and I kind of stopped hiding myself. Does it make sense? Yes, that is what I find. People are often not squaring up because they are hiding from the content. And so often that's where it's like, get in front of it so that we can actually see that you're not afraid to look at it. Thus, it tells the viewer not to be afraid to look at it either. And I think with you know, you can apply that to something like this scenario that we're looking at now with more dynamic emotions. You know, it's very easy to look at a kid being upset, and we're used to that. More dynamic things, we want to give them space, like dynamic experiences in the world. We want to honor what that is, and we don't need to shy away from looking at it, so long as you obviously have like consent from the subject. But yeah, it gives it the time it deserves. And so when you start with something squared up, then you can decide, oh no, this doesn't work compositionally, or this isn't dynamic and I need to add something, and you can move from there. So it's a really great starting point. Anyway, now I'm being repetitive. Okay, this is really fun. Is anyone else having so much fun? Just me?
Me too.
Okay.
Renee?
That's me.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
Okay. I thought after all of those people, I would not be nervous, but I had to stand up and shake it out. I'm good.
I'm good. I mean, nerves are normal. You do eventually get used to it, I think. I don't, maybe you don't.
Yeah, probably. Yes.
Okay, go ahead and tell us what stuck out to you, or what matters the most to you, or do you have any questions that you'd like us to help you with?
Well, I'd like to say that I am sometimes a good photographer, but I'm terrible at editing. I need to send these out. I don't see it as well as I've seen other people. I mean, this is muddy. I love black and white, but this is muddy. So anyway, I'll stipulate that I understand. But this is my daughter and my granddaughter, and they were just goofing around, and her mom was, nudging her. And I just thought it was a cool, natural, this is what they do moment, and a fun, they're being silly together.
Yeah. Okay. Quick black and white. In Lightroom, I think people really like alien skin. Is that right? To make black and whites?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what that is. In Photoshop is how I make black and whites, and I use gradient map as a tool. So there's a quick thing that might change your life if you love a good black and white. Gradient map.
Oh, I do. I follow Kirsten. I'm going to Image Salon because I can't do this. I can't do like that. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
But now I just changed it so you can. Yeah. Okay. So look up alien skin and look at gradient, classic black to white gradient map. Just Google those things. Okay. Okay. I think this is a really sweet moment between the two of them. I love that it's both your
family. Yeah.
Offspring, grand offspring. I think this is a scenario where you need to square up. It's like just slightly over to the front, right? You're just quietly here. You're so close though. It's like, and I don't know if anyone else is like, no one has to confirm or deny this for me, but like if you can kind of feel it, you can feel when a photographer is just a little tiny bit hesitant to interrupt a moment, right? The thing is, you're not going to. You're here, they don't care. Right? They see you.
And they know me. This is my family. So this is normal.
Yeah. And if you're a client, as a client, even like, it's pretty obvious. I loved when people started switching to small cameras. I was around, totally forget who it was. It was a very tall male photojournalist. And he was like, I'm huge. Like I can't hide. Like there's no hiding for me. The size of the camera makes no difference. And it's an example of, and I love that because it exemplifies how invisible we can still be, even when we're giants, right? And that like we can blend emotionally into a scene. People have done it for years and we can continue to do it. So anyway, so squaring up, no one's going to die. You can kind of do that. So I think squaring up would be the thing on this one. What lens is this?
I think that was my 35 on a Canon D6, not a Mark or anything, but yeah, I think it was my 35.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you're in the right thing. Does it crop at all? I feel like it's like a little tight.
It probably was. And I think I was over on the other side because this was a whole, half-hour thing or whatever where they were playing, I was doing something. And I think I may have been shooting something else and I saw that and I shifted, but not shifted far enough. But yes, I may have cropped it out because there's probably clutter on that side of her.
Okay. So I actually love that you said that. You saw it and then turned. So one of the things that I like to think about, and this is like a quick idea that we can expand upon for hours, is like, so one of the big things is we don't want to shoot, try to remember this. I'm going to talk about reactive shooting, but first I want to give you a compositional feedback so we can just talk about this image and then be done and then we'll go into theory. Okay.
Right.
I think square up on it. And I also think this could be a scenario where you don't necessarily need we get rid of the hand, but like we don't necessarily need everything in the case. So that's in front of us.
That.
Yeah. So I would be paying attention to mostly her, unless her reaction becomes equally as excited, right? And then I would just stay there and keep watching. If they do it once, they're going to do it again. So just keep watching them tease each other. And especially with your own family, they may love that like mom's photographing it and they might start to play it up for you and then just see what you can get, which leads me into the theory, which is my favorite thing to think about is, okay, we're not supposed to shoot reactively, right? If we want to shoot with anticipation, we want to have an idea of what we're kind of going through, we're preparing ourselves, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is we react to what's in front of us, right? So instead of feeling like I'm reacting and I missed something, what if we looked at everything like an invitation? So you're just like, you've been sparked. And so I think of everything as an invitation to go deeper. So when I turn towards it, I go, oh, okay, I might have missed that, but something is telling me that over here is where the image is. So sometimes that's moment, right? Something playful. Sometimes that's light. As I mentioned, often for me, it is light. I very much think about light as a guide. I'm like, oh, this is what I'm like almost spiritually, like, here's what I'm supposed to be looking at. And I follow where that light is. But moment can be just as equally as much of a guide, except that we traditionally look at it like action that we missed. So instead of that, what could it bring you to? And so if you, like, we could talk about how to improve this, which I, gave you a couple pieces of feedback, but more importantly, what you're actually drawn to is their relationship. Right underneath it all is the playful nature of their relationship. So it doesn't really matter if this is your end composition. What matters is that you exemplify their relationship. So if it takes 3 minutes or 20 and the composition is completely different because they've moved, who cares? The point is you've moved into the underlying thing that you're actually interested in. So that would just be a bigger way I would think about what you're photographing. So I hope. Okay.
Yes. So this isn't terrible is a good thing.
Yeah. No. Remember the beginning when I was saying it doesn't matter?
Yes, I know. Yes, I understand. It's it's all subjective. It's art. It's fine.
Well, it's not even that. It's like it's exciting to talk about. Yeah, what's next? That's what I care about more than anything.
I just didn't want to feel like I missed it. Like I think I got it. I think I just could have
Yeah,
tweaked it.
Yeah, this is a cute moment. And can it tweak to be better? Yes. And could you, mentally move yourself towards making something even bigger? Yes. And that's more what I'm interested in personally than saying yes or no. But yes, this is a cute moment for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does that help you?
Yes, it does.
It is
does.
hard.
I
It
appreciate
is the hardest. It is the hardest to look at your own image in front of other people because you're just going
Yes.
like survival.
Yes.
Right? Sweating.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I do that. And I think that your program, actually, I've been following another photographer and she does things very differently. She's really good, but she's done things very differently, but I'm more drawn to Kirsten. So I think I'm more drawn to what you guys do. So I think, yeah. I'll be
If you're
talking to you.
thinking about joining us, you should.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it. Yes.
Dark side, Renee.
I'm telling you. Yeah. Because I've watched every one of Kirsten's, I bought every one of Kirsten's creative lives, and that's fine. I can follow her and I can go, dang, that's what I was trying to do. But without being able to talk to her,
it's not the same.
It's still not the same. Yeah.
Yes. And of course, Kristen, not Kristen. I never say Kristen. I've never screwed
I
that
know
up
you
before
don't.
until
I know
just
you
now.
don't.
I can't believe that happened. I was talking fast. What's that?
What did you say?
I think I said Kristen by accident. I just was talking fast. It sounded like Kristen, but I never call her that. Of course, has been 1/3 of this course for the last 3 years. So she and I have taught together since. I mean, I've pretty much always taught with Kristen. I teach individually as well, but with Kristen.
Yes.
And she's not coming back next year, but essentially, yes, you will be getting, you won't be talking directly, Kirsten, but essentially.
No, but it's the same style. It's the same.
Yes.
Yeah. It's the same mindset and the same style. And yeah. And I think I was just thrown by the Euros. That threw me. I wasn't sure if it was, that's okay. When I was looking at it before, I was seeing Euros and I was like, I don't know if that, yeah.
You are allowed to.
It'll, when you register, this is for anyone who's wondering. So we have to have the price in euro because it goes through DFP, and DFP is based out of Europe because even though I'm an American, I live in Europe. And yeah, so that's how we have to do it. But when anything that you ever purchase through DFP, when you do it, via your card or PayPal or whatever, it automatically converts. That's the word I'm looking for. The currency.
I think that was the thing. I had to go back and go, okay, well, what is this little word mean, this little symbol mean, and how do I Google how much that is in US dollars? And that was what.
And if you just Google euro to dollar, it'll tell you what it is.
Yeah.
The thing is it changes every day. So sometimes it'll be like a little bit lower,
depending on how the dollar does in the US. Yeah.
Right. I mean, like this year compared to, so when we first did this course, when people enrolled in 2019, the euro was like way stronger. So the conversion rate was not as beneficial for the US dollar as it is now. It's significantly less expensive currently than when we launched it in 2020 because who knows what's happening with the world, Carl.
Yes. The dollar is tanking.
But
it's in your favor. It's in your favor is what I'm saying, Renee.
In your favor. Okay. Well, of course, the three of us, we've got Germany, Canada, and the US. So we just had to pick a currency.
Yeah, it's so fun.
I'm in Canada and she's in Germany.
Okay, fair enough.
I was going to see if I could pull in an image to show alien skin really quick.
Yeah, I've never used it, so I feel like silly saying it, but I know people really like it. I use the gradient map to make black and whites in Photoshop. Do you mind if I just run to the bathroom?
That is absolutely okay.
Okay, you continue. You hold on.
Yeah. So I'm going to try and pull up. I don't know what the last thing I had on my Lightroom is, so I'm kind of scared to show you all. I'm opening it and it's taking a minute, so come on. But I will try and pull in an image so that I can show you alien skin. Oh, come on. It's telling me that Lightroom doesn't want to open right now. Oh, wait, now it just opened. Here we go. I'm trying to think. Oh, the last thing I had on here was, oh, God. That's not what I want to show. Hold on. Give me a second. While I'm pulling this up, I'm going to open up the discussion to like Q&A and all of those kinds of things. So open discussion, whatever you want to talk about. So you feel free to like jump in. You can unmute yourself and ask if you'd like, because I am currently not looking at the Zoom screen since I'm opening up Lightroom and it's going really slow. So does anyone have, I might have a discount code to Alien Skin, by the way. I'm going to have to look, but I think for some reason, I feel like they gave us discount codes for DFP because I do quite enjoy using them.
I can't figure out how to use presets at all. Because you can tweak them or you don't have to tweak them, and then I get lost in the weeds. And
I mean, it's just going to depend on what you want to, how you want to use them. There's a lot of different things that you can, oh, let me see if I can pull one of these in. Sorry, I'm talking to myself. Yeah, it's going to depend on what you want to do with your stuff. A lot of presets don't really work that well for documentary photography, I find, because we are shooting in not perfect light. And a lot of the presets that are out there made have to be for pretty much like, you know, golden hour or whatever.
that
Like,
might be my problem.
right. So, but there's a few things you can do to adjust them. God, why is my Lightroom so slow? Anyways, there's a few things you can do to adjust them, and that, you know, will help with it or help them work. And otherwise, you know, Alien Skin is also great. Where is, sorry, y'all. I'm just trying to figure out why my Lightroom's taking so long. Yeah, I think, and then there's also like, you can add, I think they call it a plugin. You can add a plugin on Lightroom. Like if you Google a Lightroom adjustment plugin, or what is it, opacity, you can plug that in to adjust the opacity of a preset. So like sometimes some presets seem too strong. Does that make sense what I'm saying? No, maybe.
My recommendation with presets, and I've said this for a long time, is if you're going to use them, like I think people should edit on their own first, to be honest. But if you're going to use presets to help you, look at what the presets are doing.
Yeah.
So actually pay attention to see what they're applying, and then take and leave what you like and what you don't like. And like Ash was saying, or I caught the tail end of it, is that light is so specific. And so if you're applying a golden hour one to something indoor, it's not going to work. There are some people that, I'm sure there's presets for indoor stuff, but and none of it is like bad per se. It's just that if you have an understanding of it, then you'll be able to use them properly. And there are people that can use presets completely to their advantage, but I think those people do actually know kind of what they're doing. And that is actually how I learned to edit too. When I was, for 6 months outside of school, I did editing for another company, and I just broke down their actions. I just like, I had to edit all day, and it was just like, okay, well, what's this action doing? What's this action doing? To the point where I could replicate it. You know, I could replicate something in curves myself because I was practicing those things, and it was very helpful. And then I learned what I didn't like. And also, much like shooting in the field, like you have to experiment and do stuff to really know what you like. You know, like I had to overdo, you know, I have photoshopped under eyes after under eye to know that I don't like doing that. Like, not because I don't like physically doing it. I enjoyed the process. I don't like the emotional statement of taking someone's wrinkles away. So it's like I had taken my own away for a bio for the website, and I was like, this doesn't look like me, and you know, didn't get it. I essentially rejected it in the end. But you have to experiment to know what you like and what you want to get rid of, you know. So editing is just as experimental as shooting. So the more you dig into it, the faster you'll find your style and find what you like.
I'm still pulling stuff up. I don't know why my Lightroom's going so slow, but I just had to pull some.
What were you trying to pull up?
Oh, I was just going to show them Alien Skin through Lightroom. It's a plugin. You can actually use Alien Skin through Photoshop as well, just so you all know.
Yes, I put that in the chat too.
Yeah, yeah, I just saw that.
Why don't we go to questions? Because I think you can.
Yeah, I asked them.
Oh yeah, okay.
Does anyone have questions?
Yeah, Lisa, is she still here? Elisa? She had asked me, she might be gone. She
But we-
had asked, but she has the recording. So she had asked me at the beginning, how would you describe the type of clients that are attracted to documentary family photography, and what is the problem we would be solving for them? Do you want to answer the solving problem part?
I will.
Solving problem solving, whatever the. Okay.
Do you want me to start with all of it?
Well, I have my own feedback for it, but then I think the problem we'd be solving, that sounds like an Ash thing. Well, I was going to say in terms of what type of client is that all of us are going to have different types of clients.
Exactly.
And especially if you're the most true to yourself in building your portfolio. So making photos that you like, sharing photos that you like, obviously you're going to have your sights set high on photos that you can't quite accomplish right away. All of us want to make better work than we do, but you are showing and sharing the photos that resonate the most with you. The clients that come to you are going to be the ones that resonate with those photographs, and they'll kind of present themselves over time, what your clientele is like. I think you're like this, like you don't create a profile of the ideal client ahead of time, right? And I don't have an ideal client ahead of time. I have a general nature of what my clients are like.
They're like
for me, it's but it's because I know that over time, right? I do, and mine are like me, but also not.
No, they're not like you, but they have. So here's what it boils down to: is when we do the work of like working out your brand, I teach branding different than any other mentor workshop class that I've ever seen. For the simple fact that I actually like studied through university and then did through my own trial and error of how to make this work for myself. Because being an American living in Germany, I was like, how am I going to create these client profiles about a culture that I'm not really that familiar with, and all of these things. So we take what I call as a holistic approach to branding, which is branding from who you are, and then figuring out what kind of clients would want to work with you based on your values and the impact you create on their life with your photographs. And so that's kind of what we walk through. That's actually like one of the very first lessons we work through, is taking a look at your photographs, seeing what it is you're drawn to, what it is your photos are saying to people, what you're wanting people to, when someone sees a photo that you've made for the first time of them or their family or their image set as a whole, what is it that you hope they're going to feel and say about those photos? And so we take a look at all of those things. And from there, you're able to figure out what problem you're solving. And a lot like problem solving is kind of like a buzz thing that people have been talking about in marketing. It's not a buzz, but at the same time, it kind of is. Because it can be simplified. It doesn't have to be that you're like solving every issue that they have or anything like that. It's more so, again, about the impact that you want to have on them and what you want them to see in your imagery, or feel based on your imagery. And so we can look at it, and my problem that I solve is going to be much different than Jenna's or anybody else's in this chat. It's, again, based on what you want to say and how you're going to say it. So it's the same thing we're talking about, we can, oh, am I frozen? No. You were so still, Jenna.
Just listening intently.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were so still. That's why I thought I was frozen.
Sorry. I'll move while you're talking.
Can you blink at least? Jeez. But what was I saying? Darn it, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, that we can all approach this, come upon the same scene and all photograph it differently because we're drawn to different things, or we want to say something different about what's happening or unfolding in front of us, right? So yeah, it's really this process of figuring that out. And one of the biggest things that I have students ask themselves, and this is a complicated question because there's no clear-cut answer, but if you had to choose one, who are you photographing more for? Is it for the kids or is it for the parents? And like, so more so like, what are you drawn to? Are you more so drawn to the relationship of the parents and what that relationship looks like to their kids and how they show up for their kids? Or are you drawn to the kids and how they're these little humans who are, you know, trying to find their way in the world? And that doesn't mean you can't photograph parents with that. It's just, is that what you want to show more of? And then in addition to that, figuring out what you want to, or how you want to impact them present day. So that's going to be the biggest thing. Most of the time when we hear about marketing or photographs, that's this idea of like, these photographs are going to mean so much generations from now, and this is your family's history. And all of that is very, very true. But I've yet to stumble upon a photograph that didn't mean a lot to me 10, 20 years down the line, even if it's an awful photograph. So what can I do today to make them feel something and not have to make them wait for 10 or 20 years to get a feeling from that photograph? Does that make sense? I just rambled. I blacked out for a minute.
No, that was a light bulb. That was pretty good.
Oh, good.
I think what I'll also add to that too is the fun ride of sometimes discovering how you feel along the way too, right? Which is like, with people that actually give you feedback, it's like, okay, your work is like, so you may answer one way, but your work may be saying a totally different story. And then you can go, oh, okay, do I want to adjust my work to reflect my values, or am I not that I'm changing your values, but are we going, okay, maybe I actually am like just drawn to this type of storytelling or this way of making images that I need to adjust how I think about it or how I'm trying to sell it.
Yes.
Or get that message across, not just selling, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, is a lot of times we might think we are saying one thing or shooting one way, and in actuality, when we get down to the heart of it, we're showing something more or something deeper. And a lot of times that is based upon ourselves and kind of where we came from and our background and our history leading up. And so that's why we see a certain way.
Yeah, or like we think we're saying, here's a story about, let's say, affection, and that's where like training in photography helps, is that like, okay, how do we support it? Your photograph isn't quite yet, because it's taking us out of that, because maybe you're thinking about this compositional rule too much or whatever. And so then we can guide you to make images that actually reflect how you're feeling and what you were trying to say, which is why we always ask at the beginning, like, what was the point of the image? Anyway, so it's kind of fun. I just enjoy that process of discovery.
It's a very, I don't want to say difficult because that sounds scary. It's not the easiest process to figure out, but that's the whole kind of thing of it, is digging into it and also realizing that it's an ever evolving process, I think. And the more and more you can start to recognize it and slow down and like look for those things, the easier these types of questions are to answer. And it's easier then to explain what it is you do, why you do it, why you're making the photographs that you're making, and why people should care about it.
Yeah. Okay, and then this goes to this last question here from Tiwi, which is there a good way to create a great balance between being very artistic and being commercial without feeling of compromising your art in documentary photography? And I think both of us believe that you don't have to compromise it. I think that actually your clients want really beautiful work. That's the truth. And if you can dig into what you and execute the way that you want to execute the photographs, the best you possibly can, people will be drawn to that. That as it is actually what they want. And so, yeah, I think it's actually easier than you think. We can talk about the details of how things become commercial. And of course, I did mention the nuance earlier about service. Like, we have to know kind of like, if a commercial client is asking you for photos of something specific and you never deliver those specific photos, I mean, I suppose that's a problem, right? You have to deliver certain expectations, especially depending if you're working with a company or whatnot. But generally, if you're putting out into the world what you're capable of, people will be drawn to you for that. And so then you have the foresight to know, I'm going to make the best photos possible for these people, even if they think right now that means this, or I'm afraid they think it means this, and we dig into what we actually want to say. It works out better for everybody. So I don't think it's as big of a gap as it seems. Often in the beginning, the gap between sticking to your art and selling something is because we're not actually executing our photographs the way that we think we are.
My dog just came back in the room. Okay, I'm kind of scared to share my screen in case something pops up that shouldn't.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. Hold on. Okay, so I just have like a raw image here. It's not the best image by any means. I just kind of pulled some stuff over. So this hasn't been touched yet. I just straightened it ever so slightly in Lightroom. And you can see here, I can throw on, there's certain presets that could work really easily with this, and I could just make minor adjustments. Typically, I'm throwing on a preset after I've made some tweaks here, whether that be, adjusting the white balance a little bit or upping the exposure or even dodging and burning, but I might save that until the end. So I can show you here, like I said, there's certain presets that could work really well with this. I don't really use presets a lot. You can also just use the black and white in, what is this thing I'm using? Lightroom. Or another great thing is, I'm not sure if a lot of people don't realize it, but there's these profiles that are also really great. So if something's not working for you, let's say the color is really off on something or whatever, a lot of times instead of using a preset or starting off, you might just need a different profile on there to adjust the color, so you do not need to adjust the white balance so much. And that's here under this little thing here. It says profiles, and you can click here to get an idea and kind of glaze over them to see which one's going to work best. So that's that. I'm not going to fully just edit through this image because I want to show alien skin. Where is it? Hold on. ADN. Oh crap, mine's through Photoshop, Jenna. So I'm gonna have to show.
Maybe alien skin is only Photoshop. I just know people like it.
No, I think it. Oh God. Of course. Okay.
There's good black and whites are hard to make, especially if you have nowhere to start from. And so that's why I mentioned those two things, because I think they're good starting grounds. I've seen people, I've never, someone tried to convince me into alien skin once years ago, but because I'm so happy with the gradient map and how I use the gradient map in Photoshop,
Right.
I was like, I don't need this. But they're options anyway.
Okay, I'm gonna have to figure this out because my computer keeps, I don't know what's wrong with my Adobe stuff today. Anyway, sorry, I'll show you in a minute. I'll go back to that. What other questions do you all have? What
Yeah,
a hot
they're
mess.
good questions.
Hi, I have a question that we've all asked many times and answered many times, but I want to hear it one more time.
Okay.
You're at a session and these people have hired you for documentary. They love documentary. You've had the pre-consult, you've sent all the information, and then they want to set up a candid.
Yeah.
You just do it and like yell in your head. What do you say?
Do they want to set up a candid or set up a portrait?
Candid.
A
This just
candid,
happened
yeah.
to me recently. She kept doing it throughout the session, like,
Yeah.
and they were really bad ideas too. So it was
Of
like,
course.
oh my God.
So she wanted it to look so lifestyle basically.
Yeah.
I guess it was like us walking up the stairs.
Okay. Okay. And
Yeah.
does it happen to you on repeat or just happen once?
It happened more than once.
Okay. It could be like, we're not going to dive into like your website just yet. It could be that you may have candids that look a little bit lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? That you're giving off the idea. This does happen to people sometimes. Like recently someone told me the same story where they were like, said I was this, did this, did all this stuff. And this is where like consults, you do the best you can to consult, but like sometimes the consults don't work. They're just like,
Right.
People are either on board or they're not. So you do your best as possible. And the starting point, so again, I'm not accusing you of this. I'm just saying the starting point is going to the portfolio to make sure the portfolio very much looks candid, to make sure your copy all is very much like, it's not a documentary style, but an approach, right? So like some people say, I should kind of like this or whatever. But some people are also taking photos that look more towards lifestyle, even though they were taken candidly. I'll take those off my website if it looks like it could be set up. I don't want that to be the case. Even if I like the image, I'll take that down. So say, that's from the beginning, then you talk on the phone, you explain, I'm not going to oppose you at all. You guys are just natural. And like, even though it feels awkward, it's going to be great. You do your whole thing, you show up and like, you've done all this and it still happens. you can like, you can either be like, okay, but if it happens more than once, that's why I would go back to do the analysis, okay? To be like, okay, something's missing between A and B for you. If it happens once, you don't have to overcompensate. Like if it never happens again, don't overcompensate, right? Because it's like, could just be the wrong client. You can very much tell them, like, you can remind them in this space, I don't actually set anything up. Like, you guys are perfect the way you are. I really just want you to enjoy your family the way you are. I'm not going to change anything. Or you can like kind of go along with it for a little bit and see what it's like. One thing I do, if I have a family that needs portraits, or if they're like a little bit more set up for me, if I end up having to do it, I work super, super, super hard to get the candid moments. So if like they're like, we're walking up the stairs, I'm not taking what they think I'm taking. I don't obey their request. I take the photograph that I think exemplifies either the absurdity of what's happening, but it's still in like a fun way. Or I'm looking for the moments where they are real, and the kids are your key there, because kids often can't hold it together. So like I have one client that I actually love, I do them on repeat, but like their mom always dresses up, and you can tell that, like, and I have people that dress up, but she like dresses up, like she puts on the thing for the card versus just being stylish. And the kids just never obey. The kids are just their own deal. So like, I don't mind it with her in particular, because it's always a fun session. But I've also had sessions, so I work really hard in those, like really, really hard. I'm hyper observant of real life moments. I'm already that way, but now I'm like extra to try to get through that time, because you're not just going to walk up, right? So I'm giving you a nuanced, actual, truthful answer, because the thing is, if someone says to you, this will never happen, that's a lie. It will the odd time. And it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to leave? No. So the other thing is that, and I have done this too, which is I stop and say, you know, like I've had to say in the past, like people were controlling their kids. And I said, listen, your kids can do nothing wrong here. You know, like even if they're like shoving their stuffy in my camera, that's fine. With the exception of kids splashing me with water. That's one place where I don't let them do it. But other than that, I can handle this, you know, like this is what I want. And so you kind of take a pause to say, just remember, this is candid. And if that isn't working and they just are controlling the whole thing, don't contribute to the controlling. Do you know what I mean? In the sense that like, don't be like, okay, do that again, because I didn't get it. Just do your own thing through it. It's an interesting thing to navigate, but I would go back. It's happening more than once. Go right back to the beginning and analyze every step of the way. Is there any indication, or is there any visuals that might lead someone to believe that even though you're saying documentary, you actually aren't? I don't think that's a popular answer though. So Ash, do you have a different answer? Or you're still looking through your stuff?
Sorry, I meant it happened multiple times at that session. So
at that session, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I mean, I would analyze anyway. You don't want to, this is the thing, if it happens only once to you ever, you don't want to overcompensate, but you might say, okay, what can I do to prevent that next time? And you can just like really emphasize, like, this is for real, you know. But
would you deliver the photo of them walking up the stairs? You know, I mean,
I would deliver the photos of what you think are the best photographs. Yeah, I would still deliver the way you would. And then you can say, this is the way that we talked about, this is the way that we shot, you know. Yeah. If she's like really wanting,
because she told me where she was going to hang it, right? She wanted a picture of them walking up the stairs to hang it on the stairwell. She wanted a picture of the kids eating to hang that picture there, you know? So I think she knows, like she's excited.
Yeah. Okay. So that kind of thing, like I said, the nuance, it doesn't throw me off as much as maybe it should. I just work extra hard to make sure if I'm getting a picture of them walking up the stairs, that it's a picture I'm proud of. And if I'm getting a picture of them eating, it's a picture I'm proud of. So I'm still looking for moments. I'm still looking for interaction. I'm still looking for something universal that speaks to just beyond that table. I just go like, I might internally go like, oh boy, you know, I have to do this, but I'm still working hard to get that, because I'm not going to like necessarily just shame her on the spot either. You know what I mean?
I totally do.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I don't think my answer is popular. Go ahead.
No. Well, so my thing is, like you said, you're educating them a lot beforehand. And so for me, I've done that process, and I'm educating them. And then if they're asking, like, I don't mind if families want some kind of post portrait or something, that doesn't bother me. Like, I totally get that. Like, sure, let's do a couple portraits. But if they're wanting to act things out, I'll be like, Brenda, we talked about this. Like, okay, if you want photos in your kitchen, then you guys need to go do something in your kitchen. Like, but we're not going to like play whatever. And I'll say it jokingly. you know, I'm not like really being rude or anything like that, but I'll be like, come on, we don't want that. That's why you hired me. You told me you love my work. Trust me.
Yeah.
Just do your thing. Be normal, Brenda.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of jokingly see it, but it happens to me so rarely. Yeah, it's really rare when it happens. I think because people, like I said, well, I'm also, most of my clients are at this point like repeat clients, so they know how I work. But prior to that, it's really that I was like pounding it into them that like, hey, this is what I do. Like I'm, you know, gonna be there hanging out like a friend with a camera. You guys will do your normal thing, and my job is to make a story of your day. If you want to make some portraits, I know that Kirsten, you used to, at least before, she had said she did portraits at the beginning of the session. I personally do them at the very end, because by that point everyone's gotten to know me. I've been there long enough, and I'll do a couple portraits. But other than that, I don't know. I'll be like, oh my gosh, that looks so stupid, Brenda. Get off the stairs. No, I'm just kidding.
Or like, yeah, gentle guiding. Like,
yeah,
I laugh at a lot of the stuff that's like, I don't know. I have a friend who only, this one's my girlfriend, so it's different. She like probably only has me because I'm was her roommate, you know, where she has like all these Pinterest ideas. And I'm like, what? I just laugh at her. She goes, well, I don't know. She's like, I don't know photography. But that's just one particular friend. She's not really a client, but I definitely laugh at her, you know, gently. Like, okay, you know, there's like, yeah, there's gentle ways to sway them towards, like, I wouldn't give up. I wouldn't give up in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would be like exactly, like direct them towards what matters in the beginning, take a hold of it if you can.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the nuance really comes in if like, you just really can't. If you really can't, and this is like what it's like, you know, I don't know, maybe I won't come back, but
That's
it's,
helpful.
yeah.
But
again,
I think you're doing the right thing, just educating at the beginning. That's going to be the biggest thing, is like letting them know, like, hey, wait, I don't do any posing. It's not gonna, like, maybe even add that into your verbiage when you're talking to them, like as a, like just a bullet point that you make sure to cover with every client. Like, oh, you don't have to be pretending to do anything either.
Yes.
You're just living your life. You don't need to be pretending to tickle each other.
Yeah.
Or, you know, pretending to read a book. Just live your life. Like that's what I'm there to photograph.
Yeah. And you can also sometimes use the examples. Like you can say, like, you know, I had a family recently that I think they thought I really was going to tell them what to do. But I really wasn't. And you can use that as an example. Don't like make fun of that family, but you can just say like, this is the thing, but you know, it actually works this way.
I name and shame. No,
here's their Instagram handle. But again, like maybe it's just one client, you don't have to overcompensate. So I don't know, but really analyze your portfolio, really analyze it and think about, just reflect and go like, what did I do? Is there anything that you have control of? Because I'm also on the side of not over controlling, and that's why I'm saying not to overcompensate, is that some people I think get so into like, I need a questionnaire, I need to know everything about your family. Technically, in my opinion, is that you should be able to walk into a family completely blind. I truly believe this. Like, into a family knowing nothing about the dynamics and still make good photographs of that day. That should be a skill set we aim for. Because you're good at blending and understanding people on the spot and like learning about who they are. It can be helpful to know information, but also it can be harmful to know information, because then we start to like shoot with logic and not intuition.
Well, and it also can, like, unconscious bias, like all of those things start to come into play with that. The only thing I really ask I'll ask my clients about their family, like, oh, you know, like, yeah, maybe I want to know if what one other, like, is there anything I should know in particular about your kids or about your family? And mostly I'm asking, like, is there anyone with disabilities, those kinds of things, just so I can be prepared, like, and cognizant of, like, if someone's on the spectrum or something, maybe they don't like being touched at all. I would like to know that beforehand, and instead of touching them and then causing something. But other than that, I keep it very minimal, and I try and go in with a blank slate.
Yeah. And so, okay, so just to expand, like what I was going to sort of say in the end is that if you control too much going into it, they expect you to control more when you get there. right? So if you're so hands-on all the way, I mean, you want to be hands-on the whole way, don't get me wrong. If you overdo it, okay, so it's like subtle, this is nuanced. If you overdo your control going into the session, they're going to look to you to control it. So, you know, I'm hesitant to say, again, just watch that you don't overcompensate, but definitely reflect and say, is there anything that I can control to help this? Not to blame yourself, but just anything that you can do. And it's often just a subtle change in your language or photos or whatnot.
Right.
Thank you guys.
Is that the repetitive answer or is it
right?
helpful?
Jenna and I said the same thing for 15 minutes, just in a loop.
Well, just because she said that it's a question we ask all the time, right? Which is true. I mean, and often, like, as a general statement, what I would say is that, like, this has nothing to do with you, right? Because it's asked a lot because most portfolios do not match a candid feeling. It's like we're going after a lifestyle look, but candidly, or we have controlled where they're standing and we've made sort of like documentary style as opposed to documentary approach. Now, I don't have a problem if somebody wants to be documentary style. I don't think you have to be a documentary photographer to be a good photographer. I think what matters is that our copy matches what we're actually offering, right? I think that's all that matters. You match what you're saying, because that's confusing otherwise, right? So if you say you're documentary style, but then you're controlling everything, well, that's confusing for your client. And so there's enough people that will struggle in general with client interactions for that reason. It's their copy and their images don't match. And that's why the question is repetitive. I'm not saying that's you, just kind of speaking to why that might come up all the time. So it's okay to ask it again.
Yeah, no, I am confusing because I do love portraits and I do love documentary. I don't like fake documentary. So
yeah.
Right.
So it could lend it to it. I mean, and sometimes I have great photos, like really great photos that I would love to like share. I'm proud of getting, kind of like we looked at with Paulina, like there's photos I'm like, oh, that was fun. I accomplished that. But then it still is like gives the wrong idea to a stranger viewing my portfolio. And so it will not make it in because it's like, it matters more to me, not that I share everything I've ever done that's successful, but instead to pull the right people in. And the right people to me are the people that want it. I don't really care what you're like, as long as you're, well, I care what you're like if you're, not annoying, but like, I want to work with the people, but generally I don't care what you do for a living. All that kind of stuff is like, whatever.
And at the end of the day,
that
doesn't matter. None of that.
Just want you to like what I'm making, and then we will like each other. So that matters the most is like, is what I put out there and who that attracts. And I tweak that. I've always tweaked that to attract the right people, or to reject the right people. So like my portfolio, I feel like rejects as many people, more people than it attracts.
Jenna and I always use the example of the name of our year-long program. Because a lot of people will be very turned off by the name No More Effing Around, right? Right away, they're like, I don't want to work with those people. They're disgusting for talking that way and whatever. And then there's other people who are like, I am joining specifically because of the name. Like, that's what I need, right? It's same with the photos you're putting out there. You're going to either attract them or you're going to turn them off. And both ways is absolutely fine.
Arguably, like maybe thinking more about rejection would be a great way to build your website and portfolio.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like focus more on it, because I think traditionally we think of how to please clients and then we don't please ourselves. And then as a result, we get a mixed bag of clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where if you put a portfolio or website together to reject a certain type of person, and again, not based on bias or race or gender, anything like that. But more based on like, okay, if you're coming in all hot and uptight, we don't want to, that's not going to work for this because I'm not doing that for you,
Right.
And like, and it's not so black and white either. Like lots of people like reject the white t-shirt and jeans, or like, that's like a common thing you hear. And I respectfully understand that and do also reject the idea of going all out in the same outfit. But I have lots of clients that are extremely stylish, and that I would want them to stay stylish when they get photographed by me, because that's who they are. Like
don't dress down just
that
for the
is
photo.
a stylist. Yeah, you don't have to wear yoga pants just because this other mom wore yoga pants, right? So there's like, it's also nuanced on that kind of thing. But anyway, hopefully that's helpful.
I was just laughing about my yoga pants. Anyway, I'm the yoga
You
pants.
can or you cannot. It's up to you. It depends on who you are. I get both. I get people that are hikers and they never leave their hiking clothes. And I get people that are literally Nordstrom stylists, like, and they're in denim on denim, like Canadian tuxedo. They look good.
Canadian
I love it. I have someone who costume changes for me all the time because she's an actor and she changes all day based on what her family's doing. Her family doesn't change. It's just her. It arguably in the documentary family world, that would be a failure. Lots of people think that that's not what we want, right? I love it. I'm like, what's she going to come out with next? You know, she comes out with a pajama set for bedtime. I'm like, whatever. It's just who she is. She's embodying these characters and that's what her personality is like, you know?
Right.
If my other clients did it, it would be weird, but anyway, I digress quite a bit. Any other questions?
Nobody? Oh, Renee.
I have a question. I'm sorry. I couldn't get it to unmute. So the first thing is the business, I mean, the program, you were saying that it does teach you how to find clients, because I'm getting better at, I can talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I said I was very nervous a minute ago, but I can talk to anybody. But when I talk to somebody about my business, it gets harder. What I'm finding though, is that if I talk to them just about what I do, and not because I want you to do it, but this is what I do. And I love it because of this, it helps a little. Is there, are you offering tips on how to, where to meet? Because I have zero social media game.
Yeah, well, so there's a whole marketing
system, sort of.
Okay. So what the marketing system breaks down is the first thing we do in the marketing section. Well, okay, so let me go back. What we do, the class is laid out, the year is laid out, again, with photography put in and business. It balances each other out, and we're kind of shooting for or working for the same thing, even though Jenna's teaching photography and I'm teaching business. You know, we work together, all of those good things, and our lessons kind of play off of each other. And so to start out, we start with branding, because before you can market your business, you have to have your brand established. And when we're talking about branding, we're not, again, talking about just like a logo and colors for your business. It's the whole brand messaging that goes behind it. So your mission, purpose, vision, values, all of that kind of stuff, your brand promise, and what kind of impact you want to have on people, or quote unquote, what problem you're solving for them.
Okay.
From there, the next business section, and throughout this, we'll be working on our website too. So as your branding messaging comes together, you're going to be putting that to your website, those kinds of things. From there, the next business section we go on to is pricing and sales, because it's important if someone inquires that you have that information already available and ready to go. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time someone says, oh yeah, that does sound good. How much does it cost? And you're like, let me get back to you in 3 weeks. So we figure all of that out. That's the next kind of section there. And then the next part after that is learning the marketing, because basically the branding section that you do, it's really in depth and thorough. Is Laura still on here? Yeah, she is. She can tell you. Megan's still on here too. It's a lot. So anyways, going into that, it's easier then to create your marketing messages and create things like your elevator pitch and the points that you want to hit on. And it's exactly what you're talking about, Renee, of being able to just talk about your business, and people seem more interested because it's not some kind of sales pitch, it's just communication. And so what we teach in the marketing is, first of all, how to create like a system and a plan of what you want to do, and a workflow for what happens when someone does inquire or wants to know more information. And then how to keep those people, so like referral programs as well as loyalty programs, and then where to find those people. And most of the marketing stuff I teach is offline marketing, because my feeling with social media is that it's really great and you should use it, but it should be a balance. And I find a lot of people just use social media. And what ends up happening is you have to remember you're competing then with over 1 million people who are all shouting their offers. I mean, even to get people to join this free education event, Jenna and I had to like promote it in like 19 places, or like let people know it's happening, because no one could see like my post on Facebook, right? So teaching offline marketing, I think, is really important.
Yes.
And so what we do with that is it's about where you're going to show up in your community, what kind of businesses or associations in your community or the area you want to work in, who you can partner with,
Yep.
And how that partnership looks. Like even going into agreements, I just provide you all of that, the steps and the agreements you do. God.
But that's fine. I worked with Sarah Petty. I'm sure you probably know the name anyway. So I worked with her and I've done it for 2 years and it's good. I mean, she's a good hype girl and she's great and she knows what she's doing. I don't do portraits. So I was trying to morph what she was telling us to do as a portrait client into the documentary style. And it was harder because I can't match my pricing that way exactly because I really want to do prints. I don't want to do digitals. And anyway, yeah.
No, so everything that you're going to learn when it comes to like pricing and stuff like that. And Laura, like I said, Laura and Megan are both students of ours from this year. And they can attest to this. I'm never telling you exactly what you have to do to get some kind of result. What I'm telling you is here's the different options. These are the pros and cons of each. And this, you have to figure out what you're offering and what your life looks like so that you can figure out which one is going to work best for you. I can guide you towards that decision.
Right.
But I can't make that decision for you. And it's one thing that I realized with documentary photography in particular is like structuring this business portion of it. We do have to market ourselves and talk about our work in a different way than a portrait photographer would. However, that being said, so I had to change things up, but a portrait photographer could apply what I'm teaching to theirs. Does that make sense? So
not
like
the other way around.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Jenna? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that, like, in general with the class, this is like a good goal in general, but we do it in the class, which is you're just finding your voice all across the board. So whether that's in your images, in your website or your copy, in your business, or literally finding your voice, right? And we can speak to what it's like to be in the similar scenarios and what we say on the phone, you know what I mean? Or to say like, and what you answered there was the correct thing, like as a short-term takeaway between now and the start of the class, which is when you talk about what you love and what matters to you, that's way more meaningful than if you try to sell it as some kind of pitch. It's like, why does this matter? Like referring to your own stories matter the most, you know? And
I have stories for the whole, documentary thing. And I don't have enough photos of my grandparents and me working with them in the garden. I don't have any of that, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
and we pull from that. We literally do that in class. We literally
have that. Yeah.
And that's the way to do it. I mean, I have like, I'm not, particularly a business expert, but like when I, for example, got new albums that I was like just so excited about, I sold them to everybody because
it was easy because you believed
it. Look at this, know, and like just like, I mean, full disclosure, this is what I'm doing. I am selling you the class when I say this, but also this is how you can tell that I like the class, is that I feel very confident telling you it's a great class. Because I wouldn't actually be able to do it if I didn't. I can only sell things that I actually believe in.
Yes.
I mean, until then, it doesn't work for me. It doesn't. And it's the same probably for everybody. So it's like getting you to the place, figuring out what you believe in, and then getting to a place where you feel confident talking about that. And that is huge for your business for sure.
Yeah. Yes. I think one of the other big things is that Jenna and I will never bullshit you into being like, oh, if you do this,
it'll work.
These steps, this is what's going to work. But instead, it's like, this is how I do things. These are the other ways to do it. If you do put in the work, these things will work. You don't have to do it this exact way in order for it to work, right?
But here's a guide.
Yeah, because I think that's one thing that you will run into a lot with like mentors or whatever. It's like, okay, well, are you following the exact formula that I gave you? And if you're not, and it's like, well, but my market's different, but my personality is different, but I'm kind of like, I'm ADD, like I can't focus long enough to like do those things. So how am I going to do this? Right. And so it's really about providing you with the tools you need, the guidance, the theory behind it, why you're doing what you're doing. Instead of just being like, okay, I'm going to do this because they said this is how things work. And then helping you figure out which way you're going to implement those things that we say, hey, maybe you should work on this. This sounds like this is more up your alley. Hey, let those things go. Why are you selling metal prints if you don't believe in metal prints? Or why are you shooting in color if you should be, shooting in black and white because that's what you're most drawn to? Thanks, Laura. Laura said they teach you how to fish instead of giving you the fish.
Right. Okay.
Because at the end of it, our goal really is that you're able to assess, critique, make changes, pivot, implement, like do all of these things on your own once we release you into the wild.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
We don't want
Well,
you to
that's
have to
the other
depend on
thing.
us forever.
Will there be, I know you do a, portfolio build between now and, well, I guess if you're offering marketing guidelines or whatever, then you would find people, because I have a hard time finding people to do it for free. Yeah.
No, yeah, understood.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay.
Yeah, we tell you all of that. I
Okay.
mean,
yeah.
I'll give an example. Laura wasn't even living in her own town. She's living in an RV traveling the country during the entire class. And she was able to find people for her assignments.
Okay. See, I would
Right?
love to be able to do that. That's pretty
I know,
awesome.
that's what I said. I'm like, I'm super jealous right now.
I know. Inspired.
Yeah.
Can I say one thing,
Okay.
Ash?
Yeah.
So Ash has this great pricing calculator.
Oh.
I was unsure about how to price and how to price, but Ash gives you a pricing calculator that says this is the cost, your product at cost. This is ×1, ×2, ×3, ×4, and all the way up. And she recommends you price your products so you'll make money. And for me, I guess I was pricing mine too low, so I wasn't making money. And I took the leap and I trusted Ash and put it as the price she suggested I think it was ×4.
Yeah, ×4.
Yeah, and I implemented that pricing and people paid it.
That's right.
And that's great. Like I think I owe Ash so many dollars because before I took
I
the
always
course,
joke, I'm like, I should get 10% for
I was
being
probably losing so much. But she really teaches you how to price accordingly and how to be confident in your pricing, and then how to confidently talk about your pricing.
Yeah, to talk about it. That's the biggest thing, is talking about it. And also, like in the pricing section, for example, it's like, okay, you can set up these packages or these items, but what happens if you have different session types? Like, what if I'm doing birth and I'm doing documentary, or what if I'm doing 4-hour, 6-hour, and 12-hour session? Like, how do I price these differently? And there's literally spreadsheets that you can like plug in the amount of time you spend for each thing, and it'll tell you this is what you need to be charging for this, and this is how many sessions a month you can do of this type of session. Like it spits all the numbers out for you so you can balance it out. Oh, you're muted, Renee. Sorry.
I'm muted because someone else was talking and I tend to interrupt. I like I said, I bought all of Kirsten's Creative Lives, and I know she goes through exactly how much she charges. And of course that was years ago now, but even still, even in the beginning, and if you do a 1-hour session, you do a 22-hour session, all of that. In my brain, I have analysis paralysis. I go, but what if, but if I do this, but what if I just need to pick something and go with it and see what happens, I think.
And that's also the help with mentors, right? Because we can be like, rein it in. You're changing it again.
One of the first things we have students do at the beginning of every year is take the Enneagram. We provide it to you. And even if you've taken it, we have you take it again so we can make sure.
I just don't remember.
Yeah. So we can have you reassess yourself post-pandemic, because you might have changed from the trauma. But because it does really tell us how we need to lead you or guide you towards what you are hoping to accomplish. So like some people do, like we know a lot of times 6s, they aren't going to make a decision, even if we're like, we really want you to make a decision. Sometimes they're like, just tell me what to do. And so we're like, all right, this is what you're going to do. Does that sound good to you? And then we'll like talk it through. But for usually every other number, we can be like, okay, here's your couple of options. What do you think is best? Or like whatever, right?
Right.
But the
Okay.
Instagram actually tells us a lot about each person. Don't you think,
Yeah,
Jenna?
I probably
Yeah.
should do
Well,
that.
and also just you like are talking, we get to know you and then we hear what you're saying and then we can go like, okay, you've got this repeat thread here. You've seemed to
That's
have
fair.
diverted from that thread. Do you want to come back?
Right.
That's,
You know,
yeah.
and then
that
you might
makes
go,
sense.
yeah, no, that does matter to me. Or like lots of people come into the course going, yeah, I want to do this and I do want to offer lifestyle sessions. And then I'm like, is that because you want to or because you feel like you have to? And they say, no, because I want to. And then 3 months in, they're like, well, I just feel like I have to. I'm like, well, you don't. So then we just like
Or-
work that kink out, you know?
Right. Or people will be like, you know what? I realize that I don't want to do this as a business. And bye, Laura. I want to take it in this direction instead. Or like, oh my gosh, I do want, like, I want to add this into my thing, or I want to offer urinal lifestyle. Like people realize a lot of things throughout the process.
And sometimes the opposite of documentary. Some people are like, no, I don't want to do documentary. I want to do portraits or concepts, or I want to be a
Fine art.
a completely different career.
Which-
And that's
Yeah.
fine. It's like uncovering what that is and it all applies. It all applies.
Right. So
Yeah.
basically we are unlicensed therapists. No, I'm just kidding. We are not.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
fine. I have one of those. It's fine. I mean, a licensed one.
Yeah.
License-
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, oh, cool. Maybe we
No,
could.
I have a licensed one.
I also want to clarify just because it is much like therapy, but we're very careful not to overstep into
No.
what is therapy. We know the ethical guidelines.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're not going to therapize or psychoanalyze anybody.
We said now is the time that you ask your therapist that question.
Yeah. Or we suggest going to therapy. You don't have a therapist, you need one.
Oh, that's funny.
Everybody.
Everybody needs a therapist.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions? No? It was so lovely with everyone.
Yeah.
I can't
well,
believe
that was
we
fun.
hung on for 10 hours, or 10 hours, 3 hours. I just looked at the clock and it's 10
Yeah.
p.m. my time. That's why I said
Yeah.
10 hours.
I can believe it. We like to talk.
Yeah.
Fun
It was
though.
fun.
I enjoy it.
We will meet again in a couple weeks too
I think it's next week, same time.
oh yeah, it's next week. So if anyone of you want to join as well, I'll send out information on the email again.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks for everybody who submitted photos. I know that again, it's like very vulnerable to put your stuff out there, and it really does help other people to look at someone else's pictures and be able to contextualize some of that learning because you're not seeing through the tunnel of sweat and nerves.
yes.
So thank you. Just keep that in mind if you're feeling nervous or like regretting it. Don't regret it. You are helping lots of people by putting your work out there. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you both very much.
Bye.
Take care, and we'll see you soon, hopefully.